this reorganization and what the process is. So I'd like to call this meeting of the Town Council for July 9th to order. If you would please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. I appreciate everybody being able to come. I know last 2 weeks ago, we said that the meeting wasn't going to be until the 16th. Due to a lot of the pressures and the urgency with the closing of Wildcat Falls, we felt it would be appropriate to move the meeting up to this week. Also because we could get more attendance, although Peter Albert is not in attendance tonight. He's on the last day of his vacation and was wanting to enjoy that, so we're giving him that chance. He did send in a long list of thoughts that he wants us to share during the meeting, so we'll at least know what his thoughts are on a vast majority of the objects of the items on the agenda. So, did the pledge announcements. Our upcoming meetings technically scheduled are for Thursday, August 20th. There's a regular meeting, regular meetings then in September on the 10th and the 24th, all at 7 p.m., all here in the Town Council or in the Matthew Thornton room. Although stay tuned, that may change as we go on with discussions tonight, again, in order to try and expedite reopening Wildcat Falls. Eileen, did you have any other announcements?
The library has moved everything from their summer reading challenge online, including author presentations, book groups, watch parties, and a murder mystery for the teens. Each hour you read helps us to reach our community goal of 8,000 hours read. If we reach this goal, the Friends of the Library will make a donation to the Humane Society for Greater Nashua, our summer reading partners. Thanks to our Friends group for the funding of this year's gift card prizes. The library has also expanded curbside services to include checking out a laptop that can be used outside the library property or in the comfort of your car. We will be adding curbside notary, justice of the peace, and passport acceptance services in the upcoming weeks. Check the library's website at www.merrimacklibrary.org for updates. And I'd like to ad-lib something a little bit here. I have been getting some fairly urgent emails from Steve Dembo concerning the community center. And his question is basically, I'm going to paraphrase it, can we keep the community center closed for now for the protection of the seniors? If that's a big topic, I can put it on the agenda as well.
I think his concern was how, as it was initially presented, that how would they be able to guarantee correct responsiveness when they have various groups within there and there's not one person to be able to be assigned to clean it. So that is unchanged. So I think that's the basis upon which.
And he did say that he had spoken with a pretty good number of seniors who often use the facility. And he said that they thought it should remain closed. I don't know how the question was posed, but I take it for what it was. And the only reason I thought it should be open, and still don't have a problem with it being open, but I understand his concerns, but I'd heard from a couple seniors they wanted it open, so that's the reason, when we talked about it, I had that thought in mind.
We've closed it, so unless there's a need, like Family says, if there's a call from a majority of the seniors in the community or users of the facility that would like to see it open again, then I think that's the appropriate time to have the discussion. I mean, I understand where Steve's coming from. I read his email. I appreciate his comments. I value his feedback. But there's no, from where I said, the council doesn't have to do anything. It's closed until we feel it's ready to be open.
Just from a technical point of view, you rescinded your emergency ordinance,
Thank you.
which deals with closing. That's why I just wanted to double check with you that it was okay for that particular building to stay closed for the interim until we find some method by which to open it, safely for seniors.
Lon Woods.
Yeah, from a member of the Senior Citizens Club, perhaps an elder member of the community, I agree with the group that Steve talked with. I think he was very clear and concise as to his concerns about, it isn't like it's something that you can control from 9 to 3. It's like any and all, and he just doesn't have, and we haven't provided the help. So I recommend continuing closed.
Anybody else? Nancy?
The other thing I would like to see is that, this could go on forever, and I wouldn't like that to be done either, but maybe we can start exploring even some of them and what might be able to be done. Like, they have the Rotary and all that, and they have several tenants that come in for things. But
Yes.
again, the senior center, maybe we can explore.
Oh, we absolutely will.
Okay.
I just wanted, he'd been asking this question,
Yeah.
and
Because
I
officially.
kind of
yeah.
didn't answer him for a while, and now he wanted to get an answer, and I thought, I just wanted to get a feel for how you guys felt for the moment in time. I think we all know how important the senior center is to people, and, a place where they can gather and meet their friends and things and do things. So we certainly will do everything that we can. I'm not sure if we can use any of that COVID money, gopher money, for the senior, for the community center, since it's our building, to help with, I know, poor Paul, he's got like days to finish this thing, yeah.
So
So,
maybe I misunderstood, but I thought Meals on Wheels was in fact using the building.
yep, Meals on Wheels is, but I just
So we're not
meant
technically
for-
closing the building. We're simply saying that for access for seniors, it's going to continue to be closed? Or it's not going to be opened up for the seniors to go in for their,
The only one
recreation
that's using
slash
it
activity?
Is that. No one
well,
else.
that's fine, but it's obviously not closed.
Well, okay.
Well, for the general public it is, so.
Okay.
That's, I didn't want to, if, I didn't want to get into a big discussion about it. Otherwise, I would have put it on the agenda, so I apologize, but I saw.
Yeah, I don't have any problem with letting them run the program the way they see fit, and if they don't want to open it, I have no problem with them not opening
Okay.
it. Okay. Any questions on the announcements? Comments from the press and public? Great rush to the mic there. Which brings us to our next item, which is reorganization of the town council. Kind of unusual for us to be taking this up in July, but with the unusual nature of this year, the election delayed and all those kind of things, officially welcoming Finley and Bill Boyd back to the council. Good to have you back. We kind of did last time, but that was technically a day or two early.
Thank you, Tom, appreciate it.
But it's good to have you back. At this point, though, it is time for us to reorganize and come up with committee assignments and things of that nature. So the first part of the agenda then is to look for chairman for the next year. So, Finley.
I'd like to nominate you, Tom. I think you've done a fine job. Yes, it is. Good going through the process of all that we've had to do. And so I appreciate the organization and everything that's gone on. So I'd like to nominate you to continue as chair.
I like
Okay.
second, either
And
one.
it doesn't need a
Doesn't need a
second, as
second.
we recall
Oh,
from
that's right, too.
past.
I should know.
So, nomination by Finley of Tom Koenig for chair. Does anybody else have a nomination for chair?
And then we go around, that's right.
Move to
Seeing-
close nominations, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. closing the nominations. All those in favor of Tom Koenig for chair signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Abstaining? No? Abstaining? I abstain. So that passes 5-0-1 with Tom Koenig abstaining. I already announced Peter Albert wasn't here today, right?
Yes.
He had a comment.
Yeah.
Oh. That he supports Tom Koenig remaining as council chair. Okay. And that he'd like to stay on the Conservation Committee. So that brings open the position of vice chair.
Go ahead.
I'll nominate Bill to continue as vice chair.
Okay. So, Bill, okay with that?
Absolutely, thank you.
Any other nominations? Lot?
Nominate Nancy Harrington, vice chair.
You okay with that?
I'm okay, but I'm okay with Bill too.
Do you want to do it?
If I'm voted in, I will do it, but I will not.
I have no problem withdrawing,
Whatever.
Nancy. if you-
No, absolutely not. I don't want you to withdraw. So terrible. Let's let
Well,
the
then one of
votes
you
go
maybe
with it.
want to withdraw, but if you're going to be that way. So, closing the nominations, we have Bill and Nancy nominated for vice chair. I guess we'll go through and do a roll call vote.
Finley has-
Actually,
Finley?
I didn't know, if time was a problem for Bill, if we could elaborate.
You
a
want to
little
give
bit.
everybody a second to a chance to talk about it?
Well,
We
if
could
that's
ask
not
Bill and Nancy to
inappropriate.
give us a 2-minute or less, much
You know,
less.
you know what, Mr. Chairman? I'm going to withdraw.
Wait,
I withdraw. I want unanimity on this council, Mr. Chairman. I want
what?
cohesion of leadership, Mr. Chairman.
There
And,
isn't unanimity on the council, and we're just, they're,
I
you know,
concur with that.
so it's basically, I think everybody considers both of you to be a good choice, but so there isn't gonna be a unanimous vote unless, so.
We're short one person, and like last year, it was ping pong. It was ping pong last year. And I want to avoid the ping pong. And I mean that sincerely. I want to avoid the ping
Bill,
pong.
so do I. I think that's the bottom line. I think everyone should be able to just have their say. Because I don't want you to drop out either, I, with all due respect. Don't be a quitter.
I'm not a quitter.
Then don't.
Okay?
So do you want to take a minute to talk about whether or not you want to be
Oh.
vice chair?
Oh, you got me. Well,
No, I
first,
gave Bill a chance, and he said he didn't want to
The-
cause waves in the council. I
No,
understand that.
the only comment that I would say is that this past year has been my first year being vice chair. It's been a learning experience for me. It's been a tremendous growing experience for me as well, and I would like to continue to sit in this chair so that I can better learn how the chair and the manager and the assistant manager plan our agendas for the year. There were some times that I did have some scheduling conflicts, but that's because, because of my work schedule, and I've been able to make the appropriate accommodations with my employer to be a part of those planning meetings. I've been on the council now coming up on my 10th year, and realistically, last year was my first opportunity to be as a part of leadership. And I certainly would like to continue to sit here to be a part of the leadership team, to continue to plan our meetings and be able to move our community forward. The only way I can get better at the job is to continue to sit here and be able to listen and observe from Tom and Eileen and Paul. So that's the reason why I would like to continue being vice chair. And thank you.
jeez, I have nothing
Follow
prepared.
that one.
Actually, I'm befuddled. First of all, thank you for the nomination. I appreciate that. And I also think Bill's done fine. We've had discussions and stuff, but that's between him and I. I think part of the decision, what you're saying is absolutely right, Bill. There's a certain, great deal of value in being able to be exposed to the kinds of things in those positions. And one doesn't know until someone's in that position to be able to realize the time involved and the responsibility. And I could easily say, I don't want it. It's not that I'm seeking it, first of all, because this is all new to me. But I also feel an obligation, as you should, that I should not withdraw my name because someone wants to make that nomination, and I should respect their opinion. So if it's chosen, if I'm chosen to do it, I will do it. But I also feel it's really important for you to not take it other than a difference of opinion, rather than not having done the job, okay? And that's the way I want to be able to respect the opinion of whatever the group decides. And that's what I did last year. When you voted in, God bless you. My ego was not based upon a certain position. And I wanted to be able to wish you the best, and I still do, regardless of
Same here
this.
with you, Nancy.
Okay? So I just want to respect the wishes of some of the councils, and that's why I was saying I will accept it. I'm not seeking it. I will accept it if voted in. That's all.
Okay. Thank you. We'll call for a vote. I'm going to go through and do a roll call. Barbara?
Bill Boyd.
Nancy?
Could I wait, please?
Lon?
Nancy Harrington.
Finley?
Bill Boyd.
Bill?
Bill Boyd.
I'm going to vote for Bill Boyd.
Bill Boyd.
Bill Boyd. And Peter Albert expressed his interest in having Bill Boyd stay as vice chair, which is not a vote, it's just a comment. So at that point, Bill takes the election 5-1.
And that's what
For
you
Nancy.
call unanimity.
Nancy, thank you, I appreciate that, I really do.
Okay?
Well, thank you, Lon, for your wishes.
So that, Peter's vote didn't count, but Bill is elected 5-1
5-1, 5-1,
5-1
5-1-0.
5-1 against Nancy's one vote. So that takes care of the chair and vice chair. Committee assignments, does anybody have any preferences to change at this time what we have for assignments? I haven't heard of any. So if there are no preferences, I'm going to recommend that we just keep the assignments we have right now, which will make it a lot faster. Okay?
Since Peter's not here, do you think we can put him onto the cemetery trust?
We could, but Eileen has never wanted to lose that position. She's the queen of the dead. Peter
I
did
couldn't
request to
resist.
remain on the Conservation Committee, and having talked to some other people that wanted to request to remain, that's where I came up with the idea of just, let's not go through it all. So we'll continue our committee assignments for another year as listed. Say again?
We'll bring it back next meeting where you can sign it
To sign it?
and
Sure.
formalize it.
Thank you. Lon, did you have a question or a comment? No. Thank you. So that takes care of reorganization of the town council, which brings us to recognitions, resignations, and retirements. We have, although they're not here, we have several recognitions tonight. We've had town committee members that are ending their term with this year. So we wanted to recognize Don Miner from the Agricultural Commission, Adonis Al-Faqih from the Technology Committee, Peter Flood from the Town Center Committee, and Lenny Worcester from the Zoning Board. Don, Adonis, and Peter will be receiving certificates, and we're ordering a plaque for Lenny Worcester because he's been on Zoning Board for more than 10 years. We're very thankful for all the effort all of our volunteers put in, especially those who then decide to move on to continue in their real lives, and thank them very much for their volunteer efforts in the different committees. We do have openings on several of our committees that we're trying to fill. Most importantly, I think, is Planning Board. has several openings. You familiar with the
Mis-
numbers?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, we have one full membership available, 2 alternate memberships that are currently available on the planning board. And my number's on the website, 660-6077. If there's anybody that has any interest that wants to call and ask me questions about the responsibilities of the planning board, time commitment, that kind of thing, I'd be more than happy to answer any questions. And if you reach out to the chairman, Bob Best, I'm sure Bob would be in a position to answer questions as well. Finley served on the planning board, Thomas served on the planning board. So to the people of the community, there are resources out here that if you have questions and you want to serve, quite honestly, I think the planning board has one of the key components of managing and developing the growth in our community. And I think as I hate to use the term build-out, Mr. Chairman, but we're pretty close to it, but we're going to be pivoting to a redevelopment phase. We're going to be going through our master plan in a couple of years. So I really think this is, anybody that has, any interest in economic development, community development, urban land use planning, that kind of thing, is a great opportunity to walk in and sit on the board and be able to participate and not just learn about what's going on in town, but be able to have a substantive impact on the discussion of how Merrimack is going to grow, so.
Right, and they're also, as you pointed out, the 10-year plan is up for renewal in the
Correct.
next couple of years. I think next year we're scheduled to restart. It's a 2-year process typically, or was last 8 years ago, and it's due again in '23, so they'll probably start in '21. So if you get on now, you have a chance to kind of get more familiar with what's going on, get a little more training, and then dig right in and get involved in the 10-year plan, which is always a good thing. Eileen?
The other thing that I think that's important to pass along to potential people who might be interested in any of these positions, you don't need to be an expert on any of these things. There's, you just need to have an interest and an interest to learn. Just about everybody who's been on these committees, they started out with very little knowledge except for a few. So I just want to say, don't be intimidated to not apply, because we really need people. And
Sincere people.
Sincere people, of course. Yeah.
Absolutely. And there is training available for people, and there's the rest of the team that's able to help you to understand what's going on. So we do have several engineers on the planning board and stuff, and that's an advantage to us, but it's not a requirement. If you have an interest and you're willing to look at plans and listen to people explain what they want to do and things like that, those are great aspects. And then once or twice a year, there's annual conferences that have training classes in them as well. Plus the NHMA has training classes. There's other committees as well. I think Heritage, Technology, some others that also have openings, but I don't know the specifics on them right now.
I believe
So-
all openings are on town's website. All the openings are on
Right,
town's
but
website.
they're not, are they outlined or pulled out on the top page, or do you
We
have to
will
look at
pull-
each committee?
We will pull them out now and put them on a quick link so people can see, and we'll do that tomorrow.
Yeah.
And we'll bring them up front.
And interestingly, we've had a sudden surge in interest in the Conservation Commission, and we now have 3 people in our backup waiting for openings to show up on Conservation. So we're excited about that. Conservation has room on their subcommittees for people to get involved and be a part of the programming and to see what the Conservation Committee is doing without having to sit on the committee. And then that's a great place for them to kind of get warmed up before they get into it. And we have a lot of acreage in town that Conservation Commission is responsible for. You've heard a lot about it recently with respect to Wildcat Falls, but there's Greater Woods, there's Wasserman Park, half of it. There's the Sklar property, which is a new property they have along the riverfront, all of which needs interest in people, and Horse Hill, of course, which across the street from me and is a huge piece of property that needs to be maintained and conserved and understood and all that kind of good stuff. So don't hesitate to volunteer. We appreciate it. And thanks to Don, Adonis, Peter, and Lenny for their long-term efforts with the town. That brings us to item 2, recognition of volunteer service. Turns out this litter crew, the litter crew, the name of them, is actually working tonight, cleaning up a site somewhere. Barbara, do you know where? At Hampton Beach. So they're a little far away from us. But these people go around throughout the state doing litter cleanups. In fact, are planning, I think, next weekend to do a litter cleanup at Wildcat Falls.
Yeah, actually, they're going to be at Horse Hill,
At Horse Hill.
yeah.
Okay. So anyway, we're gonna put this off until next meeting, or a meeting probably in August, when we can coordinate with them and be able to have them come by. So that brings us to appointments, which we have none. Public hearing, legislative updates from state reps. Seeing none. Town managers report.
I have quite a bit of things to talk about, but, one of the things that I wanted to say is that we currently have 3 actions that are pending with St. Gobain Performance Plastics. We will be able to, Sarita is working on a summary to update you on where we are on all of these either lawsuits or appeals or whatever they are. And I just want to, there are 3 of them, so I just want to just briefly touch on what they are. So the first one, most people are aware of and were very involved in is the air permit that was issued by the New Hampshire DES. The town, so the DES submitted or issued a permit, and anyone had the opportunity to appeal that decision. The town did appeal the decision, and it had to do with many things, but primarily the scrubber that prevents hydrogen fluoride from getting into the air. But there were a number of other things that we brought. We hired an attorney, we hired an expert to basically critique and review and give us feedback on the data that we produced for the state, and he's been very helpful. So that is pending, and I'm not really sure where that aspect is right now, but I'll have more information on it the next time. So that's number 1 for the air permit. Number 2 for the air permit is St. Gobain has asked the DES to postpone the installation of their the whole system, the whole what is it called?
You're talking about the RTO?
RTO, but I don't know what R stands
Regenerative
for.
Thermal Oxidizer.
Regenerative.
That's impressive, Tom.
You're right. Say it again.
Regenerative
Regenerative
Thermal
Thermal
Oxidizer.
Oxidizer. I'm messing everything up. It's the mask. I've been wearing the mask too long. So basically, they are claiming that what I'm going to term a hardship because of COVID-19, that they need a whole nother year to put in the thermal oxidizer. There's a public hearing in Concord on August 5th. We will be making comments at that meeting. One comment that I would like to say is that as we have seen around town from our own perspective, building has not slowed down one single bit. So COVID-19 has not prevented any projects from going forward in Merrimack. So those are the 2 air quality topics. And I believe that they want to push, I want to be careful about that, they want to push the thermal oxidizer off another year, which I believe puts it in 2022, which now is many years past when this originally started. And since they, as I've said before, continue to emit PFAS into our atmosphere. So, so those are the two air permit ones. As I said, I'll have more detail next week from Sarita, who is much better at this than I. And then the third one is the sewer appeal, the sewer permit appeal. As you know, they did not come before you. They didn't show up to their hearing, where they appealed the sewer permit that was issued by our wastewater treatment division to ensure that the outflow into our sewer system, our interceptor, is not contaminated by PFAS from their facility. They put as we know, they put the system in. And I'm just going to use my layman's terms. Instead of using a scientific approach to reviewing it and testing it on a regular basis, they basically want to change the filter after so many gallons go through. Because I'm not going to comment on that because I've been called out about that in a lawsuit. So anyway, so the other thing was, as you know, so the system is inside the plant. The testing of the water is tested from before it enters the filtration system. It's tested when it exits the filtration system, and it's also tested at manhole 8, which you've heard before, which is right down by the interceptor, down by the river.
But on their property,
On their, is it their property?
or
is
on the
it-
edge of, so it's right at the edge of their property, I believe.
It is, or is it on Flatley? Okay. So, so anyway, they don't want, they're arguing, so you denied their permit after a thorough review.
We denied their appeal of our
I'm sorry.
of our permit.
You denied the appeal on the permit, and they decided that they were going to take it to Superior Court. They, interestingly enough, some of their reasons why that we should not need to impose this testing and violation notices, et cetera, for the wastewater that's coming into our system is because the water originates from MVD, which, who contaminated that? I'm just saying. So,
Talk about a circular
Yeah.
argument.
right? All right, and secondly, they don't want to test down at the, and they're saying because their flow from their plant is so small in terms of the total amount of water, wastewater that goes to the plant, that it doesn't make a significant amount of difference. As we know, because we sell compost, and there are requirements for compost in other states that we sell to, we have got to be mindful always of the PFAS content of our compost, which is a very high quality and lucrative thing for and in which the town has invested multiple millions of dollars on a facility to enable that to happen. So, so to kind of get regarding manhole 8. Kind of interestingly, Sarita has begun testing down at manhole 8 rather than at the beginning of, at the end of the filtration system right outside the facility. She's testing down by the manhole 8 down by the interceptor. And the most recent, although it needs to be there needs to be a consistent pattern. So I caution you on being stuck to these numbers. But the most recent testing that was done at Manhole 8 showed 500 ppt of PFOA and 500 PFOS per trillion, which they claim they don't use either one. So it must be coming from the groundwater from my, again, layman's point of view.
I wonder how it got there.
I don't know. Maybe MVD did it.
Maybe.
So, so anyway, I also wanted to let you know that we have been inundated by a request for every single document that ever addresses the sewer permit or any sewer permit in the town of Merrimack, which has cost us approximately $7,000 in legal fees to review. So I just want, and I just want to make sure that everybody is aware that what our community partner is doing. As I said, I will have more information in a more professional manner later. This is my own manner of speaking.
May I ask, make a statement? When she's done.
When she's done, yeah. Thanks. That's your town manager report?
So I wanted to say, and I apologize if Paul went over this the last meeting that I wasn't at, but I was so impressed by everybody involved, including the public, on dealing with Town Hall being closed to the public. People were respectful. There were a lot of phone calls for questions, but there was a lot of online things that people participated in. There wasn't a lot of complaining. People were, as I said, they were very good. The staff was wonderful. Some of them who normally work in the office were able to work from home and answer phones. So there was never a time when there wasn't that a person couldn't call Town Hall and get a voicemail most of the time. It was, you called and it said Town of Merrimack Tax Office or whatever it was. So congratulations to them. Big thanks to Paul McCallie, who basically worked on, seriously.
That's right.
He did some really yeoman's work having to do with getting everything outfitted, making sure that everyone was separated, getting the PPE by hook or by crook. That guy was in line in his own car waiting to go get some masks. And thank you for the multicolor masks on these two. Also, with regard to the elections, enormous success for what we were facing. Diane will have Trippett will have a report on this probably at the next council meeting, but we got multiple accolades from various state officials because apparently the town of Merrimack was the only town that was doing a ballot vote during COVID-19. And so, as most of you who were at the polling location saw, the Secretary of State and his people were there watching to see how we did it, because they're looking for examples to find out, the best way to move forward potentially in November. So it was the people, again, wonderful, responsive, loads of people sent in their requests for absentee ballots and filled them out. We got a bigger bigger response from the voters, which is always good. We love to have people participate. And which left the 3 polling places, again, after Paul set them all up with the proper equipment and gear and all that kind of thing. And the Public Works guys who did the actual work, so very big thanks to them, you know, moving things around and making sure everything is all set up and ready. And I just, it was a really, I was just really proud of everybody on how successful it was, how much serious thought was put into it, and basically the proof was in the pudding. So also on that note, I don't know why I put that on, I need my glasses. So on that note, I wanted to give a particular thanks to the Merrimack Police Department volunteers. As you know, when we opened up Town Hall for the public, we had volunteers trading off various shifts who were basically greeters, what I would call. They gave people masks, they gave directions to people on where they should go for a particular thing. Again, Paul's office took the tax payments, if someone had, so we were able to kind of split those things up, so not everybody was waiting in line for the tax office. And they took the notary services as well. But so the people that volunteered from the police department, and again, people were just really respectful. There weren't a lot of, you know, people that were, you know, this is my right. You know, they respected that we want to protect others and the staff and themselves. And there wasn't a lot of grumbling or anything. And most people had masks, and if they didn't, we had them for them, and they wore them. So, and they still are, which again, you know, great. You know, it's a great testament to the people of Merrimack. So back to the police department volunteers. They have helped facilitate the reopening of Town Hall. The volunteers were Jane Hoover, Lynn Christensen, Rod Buckley, and Brian McCarthy, along with Merrimack Police Traffic Officer Bruce Moreau. They've been present at Town Hall to assist the residents who come to the town for town businesses. These volunteers have been present for approximately 115 hours over the 15 days to help ensure the residents and the staff of the town hall was a top priority. So that I just wanted to thank them for that, because that, you know, that's a volunteering effort. Really nice.
It is. Thank you very much for bringing that up.
Yes. Next, construction activity has begun again at Merrimack Park Place, mixed-use project at the corner of Industrial Drive and Continental Boulevard. The first phase includes a restaurant, hotel, and multifamily residential. There is no estimated time frame for completion at this time. The much-discussed Babuzik Lake sewer update by the middle school. The project to replace the sewer along Babuzik Lake between McQuestion Road and Jessica Drive is progressing well. The dewatering efforts that we were concerned about because of the amount of water that was there are working to keep the area workable. And the contractor is able to install 20 to 40 feet of pipe each day on the 1,000-foot sewer project. To date, one of the 3 new manholes has been installed, and the contractor expects to be at the next manhole sometime next week. The project is on schedule to be completed prior to school opening for the fall semester.
Awesome.
Eversource has contracted with 3 survey companies to conduct monumentation survey work on various transmission lines across the state. About 10 years ago, Eversource began this effort to more precisely define and document the location of its transmission line easements and rights-of-way. When this is completed, the company's New Hampshire power line corridors will conform to the same mapping methodology used in Connecticut and Massachusetts. So they wanted the public to know that they are using the companies of Doucette Survey of Newmarket, New Hampshire, SGC Engineering LLC of Westbrook, Maine, and Vanesse, VANASSE, Hangan, Brustlin, Inc. of Bedford, New Hampshire, to do this work. The survey crews will be working within and along certain Eversource power line corridors in southern New Hampshire this month, utilizing pole locations and boundary information to confirm the location of the company's easements. In Merrimack, the survey work will occur within Eversource rights-of-way in the following locations: from the Eagles substation in Merrimack to Amherst substation off Route 101A, near Greenfield Parkway in Bedford to the Reed's Ferry substation in Merrimack, from North Merrimack substation to Merrimack to Greg's substation in Goffstown. Eversource will be contacting property owners who we expect will have questions and concerns about this activity, but please let us know if you or any other town officials or residents have questions or concerns. So that was kind of long-winded, but I think it's important. And that's all I have.
Okay, Nancy, you have a comment?
The only thing I just wanted to comment about is, of course, you know, I'm the town council liaison with the State Commission of PFOA. We are going to be having a Zoom meeting on the 17th. We have not had a meeting in 3 months. So anyway, I'm going to be presenting, and thank you very much for summarizing, presenting this information from the town because they've requested an update. So this will be useful, and Sarita is going to be getting that summary that I'll be able to get early enough that I can email the members and let them know. So, all of that, yep.
You were,
There was a question for Eileen on the same topic.
okay, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm probably answering my own question, Eileen, but Sarita, when she presents us with the information, is she going to be able to provide us with guidance and direction as to where we need to be going as it relates to the air permit and the sewer, in terms of what our next steps might be or what they should?
Yes, the one that is currently underway is, there two are the extension for the regenerative thermal oxidizer, and that public hearing will be on August 5th, which she will be providing testimony along with Joanna and her expert, and giving you an update and guidance on the rest as well. Yeah.
Thank you.
So in other words, we're definitely on it.
I don't doubt that.
Yeah.
Just wanted to be sure.
You absolutely. Did you have something you wanted to ask, Finley?
No, we didn't.
Okay. Are we all good with the town manager's report? Okay.
That makes up for all the real short ones you had.
Okay, we have no consent agenda or old business for tonight, which brings us to number 1 under new business, committee appointments. As every year, we have annual renewals of positions on the various different committees, and we have a whole bunch of people on the list here. Bill and I, along with the various chairs, interviewed all of the people that were dealing with Planning Board, Conservation Commission, and Zoning Board, because we'd made a kind of a executive council decision that we don't need to interview the people for the Ag Commission if they're renewing, Heritage Commission, and Technology and Town Center. So this list of people includes those that we've either recommended go forward with reappointments or that are asking to be reappointed for another term on their committees. If there's any questions, we can answer those at this point. I have the interview sheets, if anybody wants to see the recommendations made by Bill and myself, or the committee chair. Or we could go through committee by committee and reappoint them with motions. How do we want to proceed?
That's just what I was gonna ask. How do you wanna do it by committee versus individual, or how do you wanna? Or one lump?
Motion.
One
As
big motion to
proposed?
do them all, it's fine with me. Actually, if everybody's comfortable with that, if there's no questions or you don't want to break out anybody to make special mention or something like that.
Perfect, so I'd be very happy to make a motion to accept all of the proposed appointments documented in
In the
the
agenda.
agenda.
Motion made by Nancy and seconded by Barbara to reappoint to appoint Ron Minor to the Agricultural Commission, to reappoint Michael Bover, Cynthia Glenn, and Michael Swisher to the Conservation Commission in their relative positions, full members and alternates. Anita Krager to Heritage Commission as a full member. Lynn Christensen to the Planning Board and also to the Zoning Board. Paul McLaughlin to the Planning Board. John Sauter to the Technology Committee. Bill Wilkes to Town Center Committee. And Richard Konescu and Ben Niles also to the Zoning Board as either full or alternate members. Ben Niles is actually an alternate member. It's in our agenda incorrectly. That motion made by Nancy, seconded by Barbara. Does anybody have any comments?
Thank you for serving.
Thank you very much for serving and for continuing to serve.
Yep.
Seeing none, we'll call for a vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or abstaining? That passes 6-0-0.
Just want to check it out, paperwork,
Yeah,
just make sure it says alternate.
I scratched out the interview, but I'll make sure the other does,
You
yeah.
probably start passing those around too.
Is it Konescu? Is that
Konescu.
spelled
Kones-
correctly, or is that,
Pardon?
on the agenda, is it spelled incorrectly, or is that the correct spelling?
Konescu.
It's missing an E.
Is it? Let me see what it says here a second. Konescu,
So that's correct there, but it's not right here.
Okay.
It's not right in the agenda.
and it's not right down here either, so that's fine. I was gonna look at Ben Niles and see whether his is correct or not. As an alternate, it's correct here, so we'll just get those all signed.
Just sign first, well.
Okay, so that passed 6-0-0. And those folks, obviously are not here. You need to swing by the town clerk's office to see Diane or Brenda to get re-sworn in. So sometime between now and your next meeting, that would be a good thing to do. And thank you again for being willing to continue to serve in those capacities. We appreciate it. Brings us to number 2 on our agenda. Consideration of changes to Chapter 183, Vehicles and Traffic of the Merrimack Town Code. First reading. This is an opportunity for the Town Council to consider the acceptance of recommended changes to Chapter 183, Vehicles and Traffic of the Merrimack Town Code to add a new section, 183-24, resident-only parking areas pursuant to Charter Article 5. So I'll open this up to Eileen to introduce for us, please.
Okay, so during the course of discussions and kind of trial and error, trying to assist the residents and users of the Wildcat Falls area in that particular neighborhood, several things were suggested to me, and this was one of them. And so I had the attorney look into it. It's very unusual for this town. I've never actually seen this being done. I am definitely in favor of it, personally. Not that you care, but anyway, so what, no, but I mean, it's, you know, it's doesn't really matter. I don't have a vote. So, but anyway, so what it is it outlines parking for residents only, Merrimack residents only, not for neighborhood residents only, but Merrimack residents only on all those 7 streets in the Courier Road neighborhood. As I said, it's a very unusual thing, and I know you've heard this so many times, but I want to caution you publicly to please make sure that when you make decisions about this for an unusual type of ordinance, that whatever you decide and the reasoning behind what you decide will apply to anyone that comes before you. So, for instance, if you wanted, so this restricts the parking for residents only. So let's say I live down by the lake and I don't like all the cars down there because they're, they're blocking up my neighborhood. And I would like to have it be for residents only. And then let's say we introduce the whole idea of a visitor pass. I can give out my visitor passes to my friends, and so can my neighbors, and we'll end up with our own private enclave where nobody else can park. So you have to thoroughly think of any other thing that could come forward to you that you could not legally deny unless, if you pass this. So my thought is that there's a very specific reason that this would be advisable in this particular neighborhood, and that is because there is a amenity in the good-sized parking lot that has been placed in a very tight residential neighborhood, and it's excessively used, and so causing hardship for the neighbors. So, to me, I would like to say, I would like you to, if you do agree to move forward with this, to state a very specific reason why you are imposing, or you're putting this ordinance in that's an exception to the other neighborhoods that might want to do the same. So anyway, I think that's pretty much all that I want to say about that. There's a couple of other ordinances on here. I put them on here so that you will have the opportunity to get started in the process, because as we know, it takes 3 readings for these, and you can modify them in any way that you want, but at least it gets them off the dime and started. So, is that clear?
That's great.
Okay.
Finley?
I think the reason I'm able to support this recommendation is because that neighborhood is an old neighborhood. The streets are not designed to today's standards, not even remotely close. The narrowness of them.
Yeah.
Our right-of-ways today would be much greater, and parking wouldn't be the issue. Right now, I see the difficulty having gone down there during the maybe not the massive peak of the problems, but definitely seeing the problems. Getting safety equipment in there and everything would be difficult. And so, short of banning parking all around, which I can appreciate the thought of the unintended consequences, I don't, I want to make sure that it's not something that everybody's going to ask for in every single neighborhood, because it's probably not necessary. I think of, is it Conservation or Constitution Drive? Conservation Drive. That's a new road. Parking on the side of that road won't interfere with safety equipment and so on. I think Bambi Trail, although I haven't been there in a long time, not Bambi Trail.
BB Lane?
BB Lane is another one that I think is to newer standards, but don't take that to the bank. It's been a long time since I've gone down
Is
that
that
road.
the circle?
Yes.
Yeah, and there's a little dead end,
Yeah.
chute that goes off to I guess, a trailhead.
Towards Greater Woods, yeah. Right.
Yes, and so I don't think that those would necessarily fit into the same situation. This was, I saw it as a real problem. I hesitated to close it. I'm glad that we're moving forward more quickly. I'm normally am one that would want to use this to go to the Highway Safety Committee. I'm not opposed to moving this to a second reading at the next available time, whether it's next week or 2 weeks. So
Okay. Nancy?
I concur with you totally. I just have a question in terms of the actual wording. You're suggesting we use identified by the residency, by the Merrimack Transfer Station sticker. I'd like to add in there, or any other designated decal for Merrimack residency. Because in the future, and we had talked about, some of us have talked about this, maybe there could be a generic decal that is used for multiple things, the transfer station and things like this. So if we add
And
this-
Washington Park, for
and
instance.
yeah,
yeah.
all of those, right. So if we add that now, it will take care of any future action we might take.
So we need the wording. Did you have specific wording?
Or, after it says Merrimack Transfer Station sticker, or any other decal, I could say official decal designating Merrimack residency, or any other official decal designating Merrimack residency, so we don't have to change it in the future. But I totally concur with you, Finley.
Eileen?
And you can't tape your tax bill to your back window.
No, it's it's a
Well,
decal.
and I think that's going to, let's
So-
acknowledge the fact, if this goes through, there will be moaning and groaning about this. And we're just gonna have to put up with it, and the police department, they're gonna be giving out tickets because they don't have, they don't have the decal on. So we have to find a way of doing it as best we can to let the public know, but we also have to follow through with whatever we decide to do. And people just, I don't go to the dump, I don't go to the transfer station. Well, get a thing for now. I was telling Eileen, I have a place in Westerly, I can go to the beach, but I have to have a decal. It doesn't matter. I could have my property tax bill right there. It doesn't matter. If I
If
don't
you
have
don't
that
have the decal,
decal,
you're out.
it doesn't happen, so. we're
For
gonna have-
that particular car.
For that, and that's right, it has my license plate on the decal, so you can't move it. You can't move it from one car to another. Absolutely right. So I think we have to be able to establish those procedures, be able to communicate it, but then follow through, or don't bother doing the whole ordinance. That's all.
Bill?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. One of the things that, to kind of dovetail off of what Council Harrington was saying, what I had thought about, and I wish Diane Trippett was here, because I don't want to tax our town clerk's office with anything additional, but whenever you go to register your vehicle, when you register your vehicle, if you have one vehicle, you get one decal. If you register 5 vehicles, you get 5 decals. And it can be done right there on the spot. And Paul's raising his hand. I think I'm about to be corrected, but that, to me, I thought, because Nancy makes a good point, not everybody goes to the transfer station, but people have to register their vehicle. To me, that makes sense, that when they go to register the vehicle, that once they complete the transaction, they're given the decal to put. Absolutely.
Paul?
So, yes, they do have them. They do not give them out. However, if the person, after they register their vehicle, asks for a decal for the transfer station, they will give it to them.
There's actually a box on the form
There's a box on the
for
form
a
to
new
check.
card registration
Yeah.
to request one.
Right, exactly. And there's other areas in town where people can get them. There's DPW admin right here at Town Hall. There's the transfer station itself. So there's other areas. But yes, Bill, to answer your question, if you want one, ask for it when you register your car. They do have them upstairs at the town clerk, tax collector's office as well.
And I think they often just ask people if they want them.
They do too.
So I was going to add what you've added. I was just going to say Merrimack resident or Merrimack transfer station sticker, but what you've got is fine. It also keeps us from having to readjust this should we come up with a resident sticker instead of a transfer station sticker, which I think is a good idea for the future rather than saying transfer station, because there are a few people that would prefer not to have that on their windshield. Go figure. So if we just said Merrimack resident or something like that to make it an official decal, that should work for the transfer station as well as anywhere else. Are there any other questions on the concept of parking only? I want to amplify what Eileen said. The only reason that we're considering these streets right now is because of the condition and the situation of the Wildcat Falls Conservation Area parking lot being at the end of a fairly long street in a very limited neighborhood. There's only one way in or out of that neighborhood on Courier Road. This parking lot's on the end of Courier Road. So everybody that wants to go there has to go through there. And we've seen a lot of situations in the past couple of weeks or months where people are parking on the street because the parking lot is full. Granted, we can make a bigger parking lot, but then we would just guarantee that we would overflow Wildcat Falls with erosion, trash, and things of that nature. And the area, as nice as it is, does not need hundreds of people wandering through it all the time. And I think the Conservation Commission is being very careful in trying to size the parking for the area to make sure that it's not overrun, the wildlife's not chased out, and things of that nature. So because of that very extreme situation of having that parking lot at the end of that residential neighborhood, it makes sense to go ahead and put something like this forward to give them some relief of all the extra parking that's going on in the streets. If the lot is full, sign says, go away and come back. You're not really encouraged to park any old place you can, just so you can walk in there. It's overloading the park. It's the erosion, the damage to the park is creating a problem, and that's part of why we closed it. Do you have another comment?
I just wanted to amplify what you were saying, Mr. Chairman. This makes sense because when you look at accessibility to Wildcat Falls, people can access through the Merrimack Middle School and be able to park there and be able to access, not Wildcat Falls, Greater Woods, Greater Woods from that particular location. For Horse Hill, we've got a wonderful parking lot at Horse Hill, but if there's overflow, people can go up to they can access Wasserman Park and come in the back way off of the Quarry Trail to get into Horse Hill Nature Preserve. So we have other facilities where I like to think that we have more than ample parking to access those particular facilities. It's just in this particular location where, like you said, and like what Finley said, it's an older neighborhood. It's a little tight. It's a little cramped. So anyway, I wanted to make that point. So, thank you.
Barbara?
Yeah, since we have Chief Roy here, I'm wondering, once we do this, what is the impact to our Merrimack Police Force? And as far as workload, the ability to actually patrol the area, since we're looking at no parking other than residents, there has to be some enforcement there that has teeth in it versus warnings all the time.
Is this on?
Hello, Chief.
Hello. Those are very good questions, and thank you for actually considering that. I just want to clarify, I think there may have been a misconception at the last meeting that we didn't want to do anything, which is completely false. We have done everything enforceable that we can down there. I think people, and I won't judge on, but I think people have this conception of, I look out my window and I see something I don't like, so I automatically assume that it's against the law, which in fact it's not. People were parking on the street, absolutely. Is it convenient? No. And would I want it? No. However, it's not an enforceable action unless there's certain criteria that it fits. So I just wanted to clarify that. So as far as actually doing this makes it slightly easier for us, because if we know we're looking for transfer stickers on the windshields, and they have to be in the same spot on every car. If we go down there, and again, as Eileen emphasized, this is for Merrimack residents to park on the street. So if you have a party and you live in that neighborhood and you have 12 cars coming, those cars cannot park in the street. I just want to make that clear, because I think there might be a misunderstanding on that end too, like, hey, well, if I'm having a party, it's okay for me to park. They'll have to figure out something else, because if we get called down there for whatever reason, if there's cars parked on the street and they do not have a transfer sticker, or, and I, instead of designated sticker, authorized sticker might be better, only because that way, you know, who's designating the sticker, and
Well, she said official
I said
it's
decal.
official, no.
Authorized is fine.
I just, because I think that might, and I know it's for right now, it's for later on down the road, but it might open it up to, well, who's gonna say what, you know, is my official sticker an authorized sticker, or, anyways. You know, just to make one other clarifying point, the parking lot itself, inside, town, it's not just town residents. That will be, if somebody comes up from Massachusetts and there's an opening in the parking lot, that will be fine for them to do it. We're just talking about the roadway portion of it.
I'm sorry, unless you guys choose to change that at some later time.
But that's not
But
part
at
of
the
this
present-
discussion.
Correct.
Right.
So I just want to make sure people understand that, because there's a lot, there's going to be a period of time, a adjustment period. But to the very long, or the very short answer to my very long answer is, it will actually make it easier, because that's all we're looking for. And if somebody does not have, for now, that transfer sticker on their windshield and they are parked in the roadway, they will receive a ticket. So, is that?
No, I think it's a great point, and I think we should emphasize that, in fact, so that the people who did come here and force through emails, some here, but tons of emails from the neighborhood, I'd like them to be, know for sure that this is exactly what it is. And so I don't know, I don't know if it'd be too costly to notify the whole neighborhood that a public hearing will be happening, but I think it's important that they know that, because that's what it has to be. I don't believe we can do guest pass or any of those things. That's too cumbersome. You'll have to park your cars in the street and let your guests park in your property. Right, and so.
Yeah, not just because your address is there.
Yeah, so
You
I'd
have
like
to
them
have
to be
the decal.
notified, because if they may want to change their mind and their desire to do what we're doing. I suspect not, but I'd like them to have that opportunity at the second reading.
Are we prepared to be able to do that? Send them a note to each of the addresses in this neighborhood?
We can send out a nixel as well that's just designated for that area, if they've signed up. I mean, that's.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Brianna Hanson,
Well, several people,
Brianna
yeah.
Hanson, Amy Seminoff.
Amy Semino,
I'm
correct.
good.
Yep. Sure, I can email her if that's convenient.
Yeah,
Once the public hearing is if this moves on to a public hearing, once the public hearing is noted and the date, then we can make sure.
And from what I understand, everyone involved is watching this tonight, because they're very interested.
They're very interested, yeah.
One other thing that I wanted to say that is not on the agenda for tonight is what the violation is. The violation is stipulated in Chapter 183 for any violation of this ordinance. And it currently says, it's under, you have a copy of it in your packet, and you have a copy of the whole Chapter 183. And it's on page 2 of 32, right up at the top, 183-5, violations and penalties. Any person, firm, or corporation violating the provisions of this article shall, for each violation and upon conviction thereof, pay a fine of not more than $500. So you may want to modify that. The chief has asked that at some future meeting that you be more specific about this specific thing, so that when they have a parking ticket that they hand out, and they want to be able to have a number, not as much, so
Yeah.
that they can.
I don't want to leave it up to us. I'd rather have it.
I was going to say,
Codified, yeah.
wouldn't it be wise to do that at the same time?
It would, but I forgot to put it on. So
Okay,
it's not
so-
on. I
okay.
can
Well,
put
so
it
we
on.
can
She
make
did
an
forget.
addi-
I
We can make
harassed
an
her for it.
addition to this, to Section 24,
Oh.
which specifies
Yep.
the fine that would be incurred, right?
No, because this gives the
This is a-
violations for the whole chapter.
Well, this would be override. I don't think we're going to go beyond 500.
All right, sure,
I think we can always go less in a
Okay.
specific line.
yeah, okay.
Right, and speaking specifically to the parking violation, I believe,
Right.
I'm not in the law, whether enforcement or legally and all, but I think this is, you have to go to court for this type of thing, and the court can impose up to well, then why would,
Can I actually show you? I brought a parking ticket to kind of explain.
yeah, the uniform fine code, isn't that? Because why, I guess while you're doing that, why would we have it up to $500? We're not gonna be the arbiters of that. I always assumed it was because
Unless
we go
we,
to the courts.
unless we determine now.
Right.
Put your mask on. Everybody
I
put
think
your
we
mask
should too. So that there's no debate in the future.
on. No, you were gonna hand it around, right?
Oh. I would have laminated it, but I didn't have time.
She's got a new laminator.
I have a new
machine.
laminator, so.
Wow.
Check this out.
So as you can see, so these are the town-specific parking tickets. So for instance, overnight parking or anything in the charter that designates that we can fine somebody. And each violation is assigned a fine, so that it doesn't leave it up to us for the up to $500. So what we do is we simply run, because every registered owner assumes the liability of the ticket. So we put all that information down, on the vehicle, usually like under the windshield. And for inclement weather, we have bags, we put it, we've thought of everything. We just check.
Laminate 'em.
Yeah, I'm gonna laminate it now. We're gonna check off the box. And so as you can see, certain things have certain fines. So if let's say you said $50 or whatever you're gonna decide, it's a $100 or $50 fine to violate the resident parking in the Wildcat Falls Conservation Area neighborhood, however you're gonna list it. Then we check off a box, we'll just make some more, and you don't have to go to court. We have the ability to go to court, but you do not have to go to court.
But we could say all resident-only parking areas. So that would take
Right,
care
as
of
part of this dash
Right.
24.
Correct, it's just
correct,
rewording,
which is what
correct.
you're,
Yes.
so it would serve the purpose, Tom, is what you're saying.
Mhm.
By adding the particular
If you add the particular violation and fine
to this,
to this as B or something like that, any violation of this
Particularly any
resident-only
future.
parking area would,
And you could even
result
do
in a
as far
fine.
as first offense is I'm just using an example. First offense is $50, second offense is $100, and third offense, you have to go, I mean, I don't know, it's
Well, what-
it's up completely up to you.
I mean, it's not really, for me, it's not totally important for tonight, I guess, but for overnight parking in the winters, somebody gets a ticket, how much do they pay? It's on that, but who determined that? Because it's not in the
Sheesh,
code.
You're asking, I don't go on the street anymore at 1 o'clock in the morning, I don't know.
Did the council?
The
determine that
council
at some point?
originally, it's my impression, I don't know that for a fact, and I will find out where those came from, but, we say, it's always been that way.
Right.
It's always been that way, so I think that that's where it came from. It's not in that I can see, it's not in the charter anywhere that
No.
specifies exact fines. It just says parking fines are up to $500.
Right, because I looked here, on one of those, it said 183.20 overnight parking, but it doesn't, as I quickly scanned through it, it didn't say anything about a dollar amount, but we have it on the ticket. And so I didn't,
And
I
I
thought it
certainly-
would have shown up in here.
And I can certainly find out for the next meeting.
Yeah, I think we need to clean that up a little bit, just so that
Yeah.
it matches.
Mhm.
We're finding out stuff as we go along.
Yeah.
Paul?
Yeah, sitting here when we did all the ordinances way back when, a lot of that was in the original code back then, but when we rewrote them, we took the fines out and put up to $500.
to cover all of
And,
them.
and then we had a separate sheet so that we didn't have to go through 3 readings to change an overnight parking from 15 to 25 or 25 to 30. And that's way back, like 2000.
Where is this alleged sheet?
There are sheets out there that I do remember, and we can go back to the minutes of in
should be
2009,
referred
in
to.
2008, when we started this process with all this stuff.
I had a
But
lot
I-
more
I-
hair in 2009.
Yeah, I did too. But I could remember a couple of the counselors pulling out the dollar amounts and saying, keep that separate, so.
So if we're gonna do the sheet, that should be referred to, right?
And we could do a new sheet.
Yeah,
I
but
would-
that's not for tonight.
Right.
Yeah, I would prefer if we just, if you allow me to get this done by legal, to make sure that it's in the proper form and it's in the, and it's very clear. It'll require another reading. I could just, so I can put it on as first read for that.
So if we put it on something tonight as first read and move it to a public hearing, we could change it at the public hearing to whatever legal suggests and still be legit.
Okay, because I'm not sure about this, but I thought that if the amendment only addresses 183-24,
Well, right, I'm not suggesting that we change all the other fines. I'm talking about just putting a fine in on
In
dash
there.
24.
okay. And then we
And
can
then
change it later.
It's a whole nother thing to
Yeah,
do.
but just for now, almost like a temporary thing.
How does this change from our future discussion on 181, where we're going to be talking about fines?
That's a different fine.
Those are emergency orders,
Literally only,
Those are event
Only.
parking.
yeah,
literally
special
just that.
event.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
yeah. So,
So
what I-
I'd like to add a section B that says fines for offenses however we word that, but the residents-only parking fine would be $25 for the first offense. Second and third offense would be $50. Any further offense would be $100. Too low?
Yeah.
I'm okay. Just tell me what do you say?
I would, you gotta put some teeth in it, because a lot of the problems that we're having are not people from Merrimack. They're from people from other states. And other states, for $25, you park your car for an hour. So they're not gonna, they won't bother worrying about that. I think you need to get a little bit more teeth in it, maybe start it at 50 for the first,
Well-
75 for the second, and a third, 250. Because-
Tough.
You realize Merrimack residents might get caught by this as well.
I do. But you don't put a fine on an activity that you're saying is illegal and then don't give it any teeth, because you already know this
You
is
saw the
going to be
numbers we-
violated.
You
It
saw
will
the
be-
numbers we have on the parking ticket for other illegal activities.
That needs to change too. But, you need to put some teeth here, or we're gonna have the same problem we had before, and the only difference is now we've got Merrimack's finest out there writing tickets by the droves. It needs to have enough teeth
You
to
personally.
actually take care of the activity. My thought.
Any other comments? Bill?
I agree with what Council Healy is saying. I know in the city
like
of
the
Boston, resident parking only $100, city of Cambridge is $150.
Yeah, but
That's-
you're paying 50 grand for a parking space to own it.
Oh, I understand that, but I'm just saying, I understand it's south of the border, but those communities have placed a premium on making sure their residents have a place to, have a place to park. And I think in order for us to tell people that we're serious about this, it's gotta have some teeth. Thank you.
Eileen?
So for myself, let's say I was coming from Massachusetts and I wanted to spend the day at Wildcat Falls, enjoying it with my family. I'd pay $25 for the day. I'll just pay the ticket.
Right,
It's true.
which is Barbara's point.
Yep.
Yeah, I'd go with the 50
Okay,
as well.
so we need some final wording then, I guess, that the council's,
First offense,
Well,
50, second offense, 100,
Gosh.
third offense,
Jail.
250.
They tell me I have handcuffs here.
So, hold on a second, third offense, 250 plus towed, do we want to go there? I mean,
think,
Eileen-
I
Eileen-
personally
Towing
think
is a
that's
whole
extreme.
separate
If
issue.
it hits anybody in Merrimack, I'm gonna feel really bad about
No,
that
I'm
personally.
with you, and that's why I hesitate to go into the.
Well,
the
I think
deep
there
one.
has to
Maybe
be a real concerted effort and do everything we can to be able to notify everybody. I mean, we're talking about the neighbors, but we also have to tell the rest of Merrimack too.
I-
So whether it be the cable or Nixle, all that.
I really, personally, I'd like to see it start off gentle. I don't have a problem with the 25, and maybe on the third time, go extra hard, because you know at that point, so, I don't know. I do fear Merrimack residents coming down like a ton of bricks on something. when they
There
get
will
stung.
be. I'm just letting you know.
Yeah.
They're absolutely 100%, I'm confident of that, will be Merrimack residents who are one of the ones that park there.
They won't
know.
do it more than once.
Well,
Yeah,
what
well, they may
happens-
not do it more than once.
Hello?
Let me ask a question. Let's say I'm a Merrimack resident, I don't have a thing. Let's say I get let's say I get a warning, just play with me.
A
for
ticket.
A ticket, like, well, saying you don't have a transfer station the next time. How difficult is it for the police to come, and if that car's there, know that they've already received a warning? I'm just trying to think of those.
They record warnings and everything.
Sure. I would just,
But-
like, if it were me, just,
But
again,
does
I
it
have done
take
this
a
stuff
lot
in
of
a long
time to
time.
do that?
Well, no, it's just a matter of running, the plate to say, and all you were simply ask is, you're specifically looking for town resident parking violations.
Right, and let's say, okay, so you would, however you do it, call up or however you do
It's a
it.
secret, we can't tell you that.
Okay, you'd have to kill me, okay. But you would be able to say, oh, okay, this person already received a warning, forget it, they're gonna get a ticket.
Correct. So, I mean.
That would not take a lot
And,
to do.
and again, I don't want to get off the topic, but if we were gonna, like, start this in the beginning, and I'm talking maybe a week or two, I would really instruct the officers to give warnings so that people start understanding, hey, you know what, we're giving you a warning, no matter who they are.
Potential residents, though.
Or no, everybody.
Not for other out of state, no. I don't think so.
Okay.
That's just my opinion. I totally agree with you that there's gonna be a learning process, and we don't wanna slam people because they weren't informed. So I agree with the whole warning thing, but if it's somebody from out of state that,
But, and that's fine, I just, again, to make it clear, we won't be able to just pick on the Massachusetts, so it's
No.
everybody. So,
okay, all
right away
it's
we start.
everybody.
Yep,
But what
then
what
it's
I'm basically saying is that they get a ticket.
Okay.
Everyone gets a ticket,
Mhm.
okay, now. And if, once it happens, if they didn't know, they will need to come down to the police station and ask basically for an abatement this one time, kind of thing, for the first month or something.
Can they do that?
Well,
Is that a
anybody,
process?
anybody, even if you get a ticket, a state ticket, we oftentimes have people come down and say, oh, I wasn't doing
Yeah,
this,
no,
or
I'm not
can I
ready
get
to
a
go through those
break, or,
numbers yet.
so I would anticipate that this will happen a lot in the first few weeks, that people are gonna come and say, hey, I just got this ticket. My whole thing, and I've always said, what we do for one, we need to do for another. So if we issue tickets to everybody, which we're perfectly fine with, I mean, I don't mean to say that in a callous way, but I mean, if that's what you decide, if we give tickets to one person, we cannot say, well, we're gonna give you a break and we'll take your
Right.
ticket back, but no, you have to pay your ticket. Because it takes away too much of, we
Your
can be.
credibility.
Yeah, absolutely. And then like, oh, so you're favoring,
Exactly.
so-and-so over us. And, if, of course it gets into, when people come and complain, now it turns into, or complain or ask for the prosecutor or for the ticket. Now a supervisor has to go out and talk to them. So now it does become a little more lengthy. And we understand that stuff happens. We know that it's going to happen. Just like I know that there are going to be residents, and even if they park legally because they have a transfer sticker, that are still going to park in front of people's houses. So this will not be the end-all be-all of
Right.
no one will ever park in front of my house again.
Oh, no.
People will park, and people will still go inside the park. And although I love Merrimack and I appreciate everyone in this community, I do know there still will be people who will leave their trash behind. There still will be people who
Yes.
are drinking. Those things are not going to stop because
That's
we put
correct.
resident parking on the street. And I'm certainly not, sorry, Eileen, I saw your hand at the last second.
I just wanted to say one thing while I'm thinking of it. So is it possible to, to give out those tickets, have people come down, and then, for a certain period of time, but more importantly even, put some kind of a sign, not with, skull and crossbones or anything, but basically saying residents parking only in this neighborhood.
So that was
Something
Oh,
right at
absolutely.
the entryway. And so if somebody from another state, for instance, says, I was not aware, there's a sign right there. So, and I understand your point of view, but
I think we need to post throughout the neighborhood.
Correct.
Residents
So
parking only.
this is
No,
where
but when,
Kyle
right,
comes in.
right before they even get there.
Yeah,
know, right-
we need
right
to
at
have
the
a big sign
entryway.
there, but I
Yeah.
think everywhere along the
Yes,
way, in order for it to
absolutely.
be posted.
And I
it
think
has-
the easiest way, honestly, is to have signs throughout the, I agree with the big sign, one sign, but throughout the neighborhood, we'll have to have signs, and Kyle will have to say how many feet apart they'll have to be, that say, parking by permit only. I don't think we need to get into Merrimack permit. We all know that a permit is a transfer sticker. We're gonna make it abundantly clear to the residents of Merrimack that your transfer sticker is your permit. So parking by permit only gives us, at least now, if it's 10 years from now, it goes to a just sticker, then, that's what we can do. And Kyle and I were just talking about, we each have stickers for separate towns that, for parking for, like, the beach. So it's just beach parking. So eventually, that may be something the town does. I don't know. It's
Yeah,
way
and,
beyond
and a Merrimack resident amenity sticker, which includes,
me.
no, but it,
Amenities.
no, huh?
Yeah.
It includes the transfer station, it includes the parking lot at
Absolutely.
Wasserman
Wasserman
Park,
Park.
it includes
Mhm.
this
Allows you to
particular
park at Town Hall.
neighborhood, and,
Yeah.
Yeah.
exactly.
So the decision
Okay,
is
so
what?
my opinion, which I think I've already stated, but I think we need to start ticketing from the beginning. I don't think we can do warnings, because
We do.
then everybody just violates it for a month or two, and we still have a problem. I think the first ticket ought to be a much softer hit, because I think it's gonna hit some residents and things like that. So that's why I would still opt for the $25. I can see raising a second offense to something more significant, like $75 or something like that,
That's
and offenses beyond that to something extreme like 150. But I'm having a hard time with 250 for a parking violation, and I'm having a hard time with really whacking them on a first offense, personally.
I
So
think,
I don't
yeah.
know where we can land on that. Eileen?
I think that we should be looking at an ordinance that is, for all intents and purposes, permanent. So to concern ourselves with how people are learning about this by modifying the first fine down is really not accomplishing what we want to accomplish. I, again, think that it's a good idea to have good-sized fines, but if when people get a ticket, they need to come down, actually take the action to go down to the
Make an
police
appeal.
station and ask for it to be waived this time for a certain period of time, this one time, a couple weeks or whatever it is. And in extraordinary circumstances in the future. But I think the trying to gear up a permanent ordinance for, are you making fun of me?
No, I'm sitting here going back and forth like, oh, that's good. Oh, no, that's good.
All right, I'm gonna shut up now.
No, I think you're making a good point is my
All
point.
right, I know.
So Denise, is that, or excuse me, Chief Roy, is that
Denise is my first name.
viable for, thank you, is that viable for us to do something to that effect, to say for the first 3 weeks or first month or something, that they can come to the town, to the police department and ask for a waiver? Or is that
I don't
kind
think
of-
my prosecutor would like that.
I don't think so either,
I'm
but-
pretty sure he won't like that.
How about a grace period?
Yeah, so yes, it's possible. I'll figure out the logistical part on my end, but yes, it's possible.
But it shouldn't be easy. I mean, they will need to actually come down there with their ticket
Or
and
just
plead
pay
their
it.
case, or pay it.
And
is
they'll have
right.
to see me directly,
Yes.
And she's got a paddle with some holes
Yeah.
drilled into it.
and I'll laminate it.
But that would still be considered first offense, so if they did it again,
Yes,
they'd go up to the second tier.
correct,
That's true.
correct. We would just be, yes, because it's
This is
still
your
in the
learning
system.
fine.
Only on the first offense,
Oh,
yeah.
correct. And then the implementation portion of it, once the park is open and you guys decide, I think that'll have to be something that we discuss as well, just so that we have an understanding of, because it's going to be difficult, because I guarantee you, whenever that is that you decide to open the park, you know, we are still getting calls about, I'm going to give you one example because I have to, because I can't take it. So yesterday, or the day before, I forget which day it was, we got a call that somebody was trying to get into the park, and one of the residents said, you can't park here, the park is closed, which we're discouraging. It's not their job to be telling people that. And they were convinced that if they went inside their home, that the people in the car were going to go into the park. So I happened to be at the station, and I heard it, and I was like, I'm going to go handle this myself. So I went down there, and the people were actually legally parked on the side of the road, just looking for another location to go. So it's still happening. People are calling. So it's going to happen a lot when you reopen the park. So that we have to there has to be a process, because I have to give direction to the people that I work with, so that they can understand what they're going to do. So I think at a later time, whenever that is, the implementation portion will take a few minutes to discuss.
Okay. Barbara?
I just want to clarify something so that people out there don't think, I'm like, the hard as nails person here. But the reason I, said that the fines need to have some teeth is that I watched people, and you may have heard about this because I stopped by to report it. I watched people at Watson on Saturday and on Friday move the signs, pull them out of the ground, put them in another location that said no parking. And then they took all the barriers, rearranged the barriers, and broke the tape, where that were blocking off the area. So that's why I said I'm thinking things are not going to change at Wildcat if we don't put some teeth in it. And I can agree with what we were talking about here, with maybe having a lesser fine the first time around, but you don't change. This behavior now is so widespread, and it's...
And for us, signage will be key. Signage
Yeah,
inside
absolutely.
the residence
Signage will be
because we
key.
can't enforce something that people have one sign and expect everyone to understand that. So
Right.
that'll be.
So where do we end up with this as far as fines are concerned? Can we come up with something we can finalize with?
My opinion
Numbers,
is
yeah.
50 and 75.
What, 50, 75, and 150?
Yeah,
And
or 100
anything
and
after
whatever.
150, or, pardon?
Even 100, 150. Yeah, 250 is.
Come on, that's good. That's good.
But taking into account your concern, Finley, in turn the residents, there has to be a learning curve. But it's also their responsibility to appeal it. And at that point, you can say, okay, but this is considered your first. So if it happens again, you're up to the second,
Okay,
which is
Yeah,
which is good,
75.
which is fine. So Paul, you showed me something you had written down a minute ago. Can you read
Yeah.
that for us?
I basically, what you were saying, it would be underneath subsection B. Any violation of this residency parking ordinance listed in A above will pay a fine of $50 for the first, $100 for the second, and $150 thereafter.
Yeah.
Is that okay with people?
Yeah, it is.
It would be the first offense, 150 for the second offense, and 150 for any offense
50,
thereafter.
100, and 150 for any further offenses.
So then, not to complicate anything, but I will, where if they do not pay, because these are Merrimack fines. These don't go to the state. Those are easy because the state sends, everybody. So if this is also going to require, if they say, you know what, but we have it, obviously.
Yeah.
They don't pay the fine, even if it's first offense. So the town is going to have to then send letters to the registered owner, and then at that point, if need be, just like we used to do with different town ordinances, it'd have to be a court situation. They'd have to go to court if they refuse to pay the fine. Now they can fight it and go to
In
court no
court.
matter what, but just so you know, I don't know if that will.
Will we have to have
Does-
the attorney?
So do we have to say anything different, or so you're just letting us know that could happen?
No, I'm just saying, I don't know if it would behoove us to just maybe say, on anyone disputing this, I'd have to think about how to.
How
Fa-
about
failure-
this, okay?
Failure to
So
pay the fine may be subject to prosecution.
Why don't we let the attorneys do it?
can,
Say again?
because if we decided that we're gonna include it in that, part of the ordinance, so let's let you decide on the, you know, on the, section B of the one that's on.
And you let
that's-
us know if we need to modify it.
And you choose the numbers, and we will get the legal language for the next meeting. Yes?
Perfect.
Perfect.
Okay, did you have anything else you were gonna add, Finley?
No, I just like the first fine 25, but another one.
I kinda do too, but I don't think we're gonna get there.
No, and I just want it to be known, but otherwise we'll move on, for sure.
All right, so right now, we're sitting with 50, 100, and 150 on, for violation of this parking in the no resident area. Or the resident-only area, sorry, not no resident area. Any other comments or questions on the parking, the resident-only parking areas, section -24 of chapter 183? Do we have a motion to move this to a
Do
public
we-
hearing?
Do we want to have a public hearing to be a special meeting, Mr. Chairman?
Yeah, everything's a special meeting.
I understand that. I'm just saying the 23rd of July or the 30th of July? That's just off the,
Oh, instead of waiting for the
Yes,
next.
instead of waiting for the next
It's only a
meeting.
week, doesn't it?
Let's
14
expedite.
days, I need 14 days to get this in the paper with the 7 clear days as said.
Okay.
So it needs if I can get it in the paper tomorrow, they might have it for Monday, the 13th, which would, the earliest you could have it is the 21st of July.
But you need to have the attorney check, so you probably
But
won't
if
be
you
able
had
to
it
do
the 23rd, then that would work. That's 2 weeks in.
Yes.
Yes, the
That-
23rd would work. It's a Thursday, right?
Yep.
And we will have had time to have the attorney look at it.
So,
And-
Mr. Chairman, I would move, Chapter 183, Vehicles and Traffic of the Merrimack Town Code, to add sections 183-24 and whatever the letters are, A and B,
A and B.
to a public hearing on Thursday, July 23rd, 7 PM.
Yeah. That's basically saying that we're gonna have another town council meeting on the 23rd.
That's pretty much
Just
it.
for
So
the,
that-
just for the.
Just for
ordinance.
this.
Well, no, it won't be just for this. It'll be for whatever we need to put on the agenda.
Well,
Or
our
any-
next meeting
any other
we're
ones.
on the summer schedule.
You know,
But it's turning
if
out
we're gonna
to be
put
the-
together a special meeting and we're gonna have other potential ordinances coming forward,
As
because
well.
we have 2 more to discuss
Okay.
tonight,
No.
anything that we have on our agenda, it's gonna end up being a
Might as well.
regular town council meeting
Okay.
that we've just decided to add into that date,
I agree.
because there's no point in not doing the business of the council.
I agree.
So the motion is to move this to a public hearing to be held on the 23rd of July.
There's no seconded, Mr. Chairman.
Second,
Is there a second by Barbara? A motion by Bill and seconded by Barbara. Is there any other discussion on it? We beat it all to death, but
but it was
it's a
good-
very good discussion, and I
it
appreciate
was.
everybody's
Yep.
inputs, because I think we have a solid thing to work with. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or abstaining? It passes 6-0-0, and I just want to point out to anybody that's watching, this is a process. We're in the first step of the process. We bring it to a public hearing, which we'll hold on the 23rd. We need your inputs. If you have issues or concerns, you love it, you hate it, you want to change it, you let us know, because then we can make changes or adjustments to it. It'll go to a 3rd hearing, which is basically, it'll be brought up in a council meeting in the future, and at that point, the council can choose to adopt it and put it in place. We can't adopt it ahead of that 3rd hearing, so we need to hear from you if you have concerns or issues. Otherwise, I think, from the sounds of the council's opinions, we're gonna go forward with this. But all of these changes to the town code that we're talking about tonight are being put forward to a public hearing, so everybody has a chance to weigh in on it, to give us their opinions. They don't have to wait for the public hearing. They can contact any of the council members and let us know what they believe. We need everybody's inputs, or at least an understanding that people are willing to go along and play this game with us, so that we can, and I don't mean to trivialize it, so that we can get this as right as we possibly can. We can always change it, but it's a pain to do that, and we'd rather not. We'd like to get it right the first time, and adjust it only as necessary.
And
Moving
time is
along.
of the essence.
Say again?
And time is of the essence.
Right.
Yeah.
We're here tonight because we decided that we wanted to hurry up and get something going, knowing that it takes these 3 sessions. We can enforce things, I think, but that's a later discussion. And we'd like to be able to get the Wildcat Falls open again after it's had a chance to recover a little bit from the abuse of all the people that were there. So it still needs some time to relax. I mean, opening it tomorrow would not really solve all the problems out there right now because there's erosions and things that are happening. Next on our agenda is something. I lost my agenda. Consideration of changes in Chapter 183, again, Vehicles and Traffic of the Merrimack Town Code, first reading, submitted by Town Manager Eileen Cabanel. The Town Council to consider the acceptance of recommended changes in Chapters 183, Vehicles and Traffic of the Merrimack Town Code, to amend 183-36, Schedule 9, IX, parking prohibited at all times pursuant to Charter Article 5. Eileen, do you want to lead us on this one?
Yes, this is another option for you. You can adopt this along with the other one or not. So this is a change to Chapter 183, as you said. And what it does is that there's 7 streets in that neighborhood. There's a section in Chapter 183 that's called Parking Prohibited at All Times. It lists the street and it says what side it is on. So if you wanted to permanently limit the parking or prohibit parking on one side of these streets, in addition to the other ordinance, it is here for you in ordinance form.
So let me just amplify on that a little bit. Both of these proposals are brought forward. They could both be put in place. They could none of them be put in place, or one or the other might be put in place. It's completely up to the council, but it's also up to the public to let us know somewhat what they would like to see happening. If there's no public input, we'll do whatever the council feels is appropriate. If there's lots of public input saying, we don't want resident parking only, we want one side of the street, or the other way around, the council can be swayed to go one direction or the other, or to say none, if everybody comes in here and says, no way do we want any of this. So we need to hear from the public. We need to know, or we'll decide what we feel is best, which may very well line up with what you think is appropriate as well. So this one, I'm thinking we'll put forward, but it specifically states that parking is not allowed on one side of each of the streets in this residential neighborhood. And it doesn't limit it to resident only. The other ordinance talks about resident only. You could put them both in place, and then it would be resident only on one side of the street. If you just limit it to resident only and you don't put this in there, people can park on both sides of the street again. And in theory, there's still going to be the potential to block the street and not be able to get a fire truck down or something like that. Not as likely to happen with residents only because there'll be theoretically less people, but if lots of residences wanted to flock down to Wildcat Falls and parked along the streets because the parking lot is full, theoretically we could have that same problem. So this is another bite at the apple of trying to resolve that problem. And what I want to hear from the council is how do you think we should go forward? So I'll open it up now that I have my spiel.
The only thing that I wanted to add is that you also need, I just want to, I know you meant this, but I just want to say that please, all residents of Merrimack reply, not just residents in this neighborhood. We need to hear from as many people as possible.
So does anybody else have any thoughts on this changes to 183-36?
Philly and I look at each other. Do you want to say?
Nancy?
The original reason why we did the one side of the street had to do with emergency access. That is still true, regardless of whether it's Merrimack residents or not. So in my opinion, we should continue on that basis.
Bill, you had your hand up?
I concur with Council Harrington's comments. Thank you.
Okay. Finley?
I believe in that as well, and I may change my mind as this process continues. Right now, I agree.
Barbara, did you have your hand up? You agree as well. I want to mention one thing, because this, this -36 only allows us to define sides as north, south, southeast, west, or whatever. And Sahegan Drive actually creates a bit of a problem, because it goes east-west and then goes north-south and then curves over back to the west. And I'm trying to figure out, if we do the north and the west side, what happens at that top piece there. And I see Kyle laughing at me, but I'm not sure which side on that top piece actually gets no parking.
Yeah, he got the assignment for deciding what side of the street, yeah.
I love his response.
Bill?
Wouldn't it be better to go even, pick either even or odd? The even side of the street or the odd side of the street, as opposed to picking a direction?
I honestly don't know whether at the top portion there, if the even side or the odd side stays the same
It should.
all the way around. So it's difficult in that curve area at the top to start switching to the other side. I mean, what he's done before, if you look through and you mark it all, he's kept it all the time on one side of the street, so that, you know, as you drove in one direction, it was always on the left or
Right.
always on the right.
Yeah, I got you.
If you go on to the top there, technically, the even and odd probably switches sides on you. Maybe not, I don't know.
I believe the house numbers would continue around the entire length.
Around that
so
circle is even and
I'm
odd,
pretty
even if they're
confident.
going east or west. Yes, Eileen?
But again, as long as you move this forward, we can investigate that and put the proper, the easiest way to make sure that it's very clear.
All right. Assuming this map that he gave us in our packet is north-south oriented, I hashed all of the lines to see that they made sense to me, and they do, except that one spot. So it's the inner circle of the Courier Road, Hemlock, First Street. The inner portion of that circle would be blocked off, and that same side of Courier all the way up. The side closest to Courier for Sahegan, or the side north of it, and the other ones are similarly marked, if anybody is interested. Are there any other questions or comments, the way the changes are worded here? Of Birch Street, Courier, First Street, Hemlock, Pine Haven, Sauhegan, and Tiffany Lane. Eileen?
Do you have to actually have to read the ordinance amendment for the first reading?
Probably. So the amendment is to add into section 183-36 Schedule IX, parking prohibited at all times, to add in the name of the street, Birch Street, on the north side for the entire length, Courier Road on the east side for the entire length, First Street on the south side for the entire length, Hemlock Street on the north and west sides for the entire length, Pine Haven Drive on the east side for the entire length, Sauhegan Drive on the north and west side for the entire length, being consistent on the west side around the loop around the north end. And then Tiffany Lane on the east side for the entire length. Those changes would be made to the section -36. Is that clear enough? Nancy?
I'd like to move said ordinance, proposed ordinance, the second reading, please.
Seconded.
Motion by Nancy, seconded by Bill, to move the proposed change to the ordinance of Chapter 83, Vehicles and Traffic in Merrimack Town Code, Section 36, as presented tonight, to a public hearing, which would be held on the 23rd of July. All those in favor, is there any other comments or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed or abstaining? By the way, Peter adamantly supported all of these efforts in his email, or his email that he sent in Pardon? Kyle?
If I could, real quick. Part of the reason I punted that little section is, in my mind, when we put the actual no parking signs up, it will make it clear which side. So that's why.
Yeah.
Partially, it was so difficult to describe, but I figured the signs themselves would dictate to the people which
Not-
side.
Not a problem, thank you.
Sure.
Appreciate it. And I think you're right. As long as you're consistent along that edge of the street, it makes sense, but. And again, as I tried to state last time, these impact all residents, okay? Not just the residents in that neighborhood. It will literally impact the residents in the neighborhood because the parking describes one side of the street that you cannot park on. And so some people will not be able to park in front of their houses. Other people will have folks being able to park in front of their houses. The other amendment we talked about was to allow residents only to park there, but that doesn't mean just neighborhood residents. That means anybody that's a Merrimack resident can park there. This one talks about parking on one side and limiting it to a ticketable, actionable item to park on the wrong side. We're going to have a public hearing on the 23rd. We need people to pay attention, to understand, and if you have an opinion, let us know what it is. So we can decide, do we do one of these, both of these, none of these? And again, it impacts the entire town of Merrimack. So just because you don't live in this area doesn't mean you shouldn't pay attention to it and give us your feedback.
Excuse me, Tom, what would the ticket be if they parked on the wrong side? And would there be a fee with that?
Did you just have to throw a monkey wrench into it?
I'm really thinking tonight. I don't know why my brain's working.
Chief Roy?
Next meeting.
I'll be sure to miss the
The
next.
question is, if they were to get a ticket for parking in the no parking area on one side of the street, is that what kind of a fine would be involved there?
Or do we have to define it?
Or do we have to define that as well?
Yeah, who has the ticket? Does it have?
Does your ticket show a fine for parking in a no parking area?
It just says prohibited, $10.
What if they're from Massachusetts?
Prohibited, $10.
Yes.
For just regular, again, I don't do
It
these
just says
very often.
prohibited.
Prohibited park, so 10, that's
Okay.
why maybe
So
we
if
should
it's, even if you have a
revisit that.
transfer station, you can park on the street, but you're on the wrong side,
You still
you'd
get a
get the
ticket.
$10 ticket.
You
Correct,
get a ticket, you need to decide what the ticket amount is.
right, but
Oh, it
according to
doesn't say
this,
there.
it's,
It says on the ticket, but it doesn't say in the ordinances. It says this chapter, which includes that we just talked about with the special one and adding the streets, they're all in the same chapter, 183, and it's all under that, under $500.
Up to $500.
Up to $500,
So,
yeah.
Paul, if there is actually a sheet. I will find it. Which you can find.
He's gonna
we
make
can
it up
update
tonight.
that
He's gonna make it up.
separately.
Yeah, he'll make it up.
And
I remember seeing one because I remember going back when we were looking at revenues way back when, and that was on, there was a bunch of stuff on it. I believe that was one of the things that was pulled out and put on that sheet. I will have to dig, but I'll have that for you next meeting, one way or the other.
But you have the ability to do that at the next meeting.
okay. Is that adequate for you?
So next meeting, we could determine fee structure?
We can talk about fee structures, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. What I'll do is get a legal opinion
Okay.
as to
At the same time.
how this goes in as well.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Now we're cooking with gas. Moving right along. Discussion of changes to Chapter 181, Traffic and Special Event Management of the Merrimack Town Code, first reading. The Town Council to consider the acceptance of recommended changes to Chapter 181, Traffic and Special Event Management of the Merrimack Town Code, amending Section 181-5, violations and penalties pursuant to Charter Article 5. Eileen?
Okay, what we found was, through trial and error, we found that there is in fact, one section of the ordinances And there's also one, as one of the residents had pointed out, in the charter that I sent to you, for emergency situations. So I gave you a copy of all of Chapter 181. It's only 3 pages, I think. But we did have the ability to enact special ordinance, a special order, an emergency order, I should say, okay. So what it says, existing at this moment in time, it says, after consultation in 181-04, after consultation and when deemed necessary by the police chief, fire chief, director of public works, and the town manager, whether during emergency conditions or otherwise, shall temporarily allow for specific traffic, parking, and pedestrian exceptions until such time that the town council may be afforded an opportunity to vote on a traffic and special event management plan if applicable. So we already did have the power, the 3 of us and the chief, to put in place an emergency parking ordinance, order, until such time that you did make a permanent change. So I'm fine with that, and the proposal is not to change that, but it's to change the following section, which is 181-05, violations and penalties. And the violation and penalty is listed as $25. I put this on here at $75. It could be anything you wanted. It could stay at $25. But I just wanted to give you the opportunity to get a bite at the apple to change this in a timely manner if you would like to.
Okay. So all 3 of these could go forward. There's no reason they can't. If they go forward, there's no reason we can't stop any one of them at any point in time along the process. So I'm urging that we go ahead and move it forward, find out if there's public interest one way or the other, and what we need to do is determine what the number should be for a parking violation during a special event, emergency, or special event, or emergency traffic and special event management situation. So as Eileen has proposed, $75 instead of $25, it could be any number that we want or no change. So what's the desire of the council? Eileen?
I just also wanted to say I don't have a preference. I just threw that in there, so.
Yep.
Move the changes to chapter 181 to second reading.
Seconded.
Did you want to make the
You want me to make the motion? Sure. Mr. Chairman, I move that Chapter 181, Traffic Special Event Management of the Merrimack Town Code, amending section 181-5 of violations penalties pursuant Charter Article 5, be moved to the public hearing on Thursday, July 23rd, for a public hearing.
As presented?
As
or-
presented.
As presented, with the $75 instead of $25.
Correct. Yes, sir.
Change. Is there a second for that? Seconded by Lon Woods. Moved by Bill and seconded by Lon Woods. Does anybody else have any comments or suggestions? Excuse me, Eileen.
The chief has a preference, or if she was kidding, I don't know. Yeah, we
We
are.
are talking about that.
This is the fine for the emergency ordinance, order, excuse me.
Hi.
Certainly, hi again, is it working?
Yeah.
Certainly not, you decide the amount, but I just want to say, when we're dealing with this ordinance in particular, it's for special events or emergencies. So, and although a $25 fine is great for people, but these are going to be situations where there clearly is something wrong. There's a special event, which we take great care in making sure there's plenty of signs. So these are the kinds of violations that people look at and like, I'll do what I want kind of thing. So I think if these are a little more substantial, because of the situations, it might be better off. again, totally up to you, just my recommendation that for this particular one, you know, I can't even think of what an emergency would be, but for instance, when the mall opened, that we did that with the mall, and we put signs like every 10 feet in your neighborhood, and when people violated it, it gave us more, you know, we could give tickets out then. But that was clear, it was an emergency, it was a different situation, and people still disregarded, you know, everything. So just my recommendation. Thank you.
Ribfest as well.
That's what I was thinking.
You signed Ribfest.
Ribfest. We love Ribfest.
We absolutely love Ribfest.
Yeah, Ribfest. We've gotten down on that, as we know exactly what to do with that now. But you're absolutely right. So we put, for instance, on the interchange, no parking
Right.
signs, and you know, people still find a way to park somehow.
they do.
So it just gives us a little more. We talked about teeth to do something. So thank you.
Go ahead, Eileen.
I just want to be really clear again that an emergency is not that somebody is from Massachusetts parking in my neighborhood, or somebody is, I saw some people dumping trash in my neighborhood, and that, along with people being rude to me, constitutes an emergency. An emergency is a dire emergency. It's not an inconvenience, it's not a difficult situation or anything like that. An emergency is something like a flood or an act of God, or, you know, this could qualify for an emergency, but the only emergency that we collectively could come up with for this situation that we had was that we would not allow parking on one side of the street because a fire truck could not get through. And that was the emergency. The emergency was not somebody was peeing on my mailbox, pardon my language. But it's, so, anyway, I'm sorry, I'm colorful. So, anyway, I just wanted to be clear about that we're not declaring emergencies over things that are awful and
Dislikes or-
disliked or disruptive, but they're actual emergencies.
Safety,
I-
right.
Yeah.
I want to add that this chapter is also for special event management. And so you might think that the 4th of July fireworks or something like that would have special event, no
Agreed.
parking areas or something like that. Or maybe Watson Park could have some no parking around it in the grass and things like that for special events like weekends that are hot and people want to go down to the water. If the four of you, town leaders, management, would deem that to be an important special event. And so these parking violations would impact that as well if we were to do that. Emergency, I understand, but there's also special events. If political candidates are coming to town and we have to mark off a certain area
Right.
of the town as no parking, so be it. That's part of why it was put in. So we had a motion to move this forward as presented. Are we happy with keeping it at that, given the chief's suggestion that maybe it needs to be $100 or something like that? Seeing,
I'm good with it.
you're good with it at 75?
Yeah, oh, yeah,
Okay,
I think that's appropriate.
all right. No other comments. We'll move to a vote to move this to public hearing on the 23rd,
Correct.
as presented. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or abstaining? That passes 6-0-0. Okay, well, we're having a good time. Number 5 on the agenda is discussion of speed limits in residential neighborhoods.
Eileen's gonna need a vacation after tonight.
She just took one.
I know.
The town council to discuss speed limits in residential neighborhoods. Again, Eileen, I'm gonna punt this to you to
Sure.
lead us off on it.
Yeah, so just again, throwing everything that we could think of about what we learned about this particular situation over at Wildcat Falls, I thought to myself and spoke to the chief about, you know, what do you think about reducing speed limits? And she was like, yeah, that's great. So then we go and speak to Kyle, and Kyle dumps a big old bucket of
Cold
water
water.
over our heads, which says that the state is very heavy-handed in their own management of what speed limits can be. And the very lowest speed limit that you can establish is 25 miles an hour. And it has to be done after a traffic survey, and there's all this other hoopla about 87 percentiles and that kind of thing. So what I'm gonna recommend to you is, because we're not just talking about the particular neighborhood, but we're talking about it in general, that I would recommend that you move this to the,
Send this
to
to
the
Public Safety
Highway
Committee,
Safety
Highway
Committee.
Safety Committee.
please.
So moved.
So move to move it?
To
Um,
move this whole topic to the Highway Safety Committee.
So I'm good with sending it to Highway Safety. Does anybody else have any objections to doing that? So if we send the challenge to the Highway Safety Committee to look into potentially lowering speed limits in dense residential neighborhoods, not on feeder streets, but in residential streets, to 25 miles an hour, based on traffic studies,
Well, to examine.
or whatever.
Kyle's
other-
against it, by the way.
Well, just to be
legitimate
able to
requirement.
examine it, because they may come up, my initial impression is it's not worth it for 5 miles an hour. And that, but perhaps the Highway Safety Committee may come up with some other options and things we don't know about, that's all.
Okay. Bill?
I don't have a problem with this. The thing, and I don't know if I've said this publicly or if I've said it privately, but, and I know the chief's here and Kyle's here, and I will say this publicly. I think there needs to be more of a presence of speed limit signs in our community. I think just placing them at the town border just isn't enough. I think there needs to be a greater presence of signage in our community. So if we're gonna go down this avenue, which I don't disagree with, and I actually would like to see some of the more intimate neighborhoods that are impacted by 35 miles per hour that may be better served, and hopefully the data will support that they're better served at a lower rate per speed in that neighborhood, that we have the appropriate signage in those neighborhoods so that people know, when they enter those particular neighborhoods, they know exactly what the speed is. Because, Bedford is 30. So when you go from Bedford to Merrimack and you go from 30 to 35, it's right there on the board, but it's, you don't know that throughout the whole.
Bedford is 30 or 35?
Bedford is 30.
Merrimack is 30.
I thought we were 35.
35 everywhere except posted
Okay,
areas.
so I'm the scofflaw that Peter talks about in his email, but regardless, the need to, and then maybe I'm positive proof that we need to have more signage as to what the speed limit is on a given roadway.
It's true. There are a couple of roads that are 35. Wilson Hill Road, I believe, is one, and it's based on Amherst Road as well, down farther in. Yeah. Yeah, it has to do, I think, with density, or I don't know why.
Yeah,
it is
density has a
anyhow.
lot, the urban compact
Okay.
has a lot to do with the speed.
But otherwise, it does say every entrance into town 30 miles an hour unless otherwise posted.
Right.
And that includes the neighborhoods. And I've had the lecture from Kyle over this before, so I already knew the answer, but
But according to Kyle and our attorney, that 35 is not legal.
35.
It's not enforceable.
30 is not enforceable, or
30 is not
35?
30 is not enforceable. 35, unless you do an engineering study, is,
And do we know that an engineering study wasn't done 25 years ago when it was set to 30 across the town?
well, I'm not sure what.
We don't know, or you know it wasn't? Okay,
I remember when it changed, but I don't know.
Bill?
And the other question is, I understand the role that the Highway Safety Committee plays in town. The sense I'm getting from the council is we want to let them run with this. My question is, do we need to give them specific direction as to what we're looking for? I just think taking, an issue regarding speed limit in the neighborhoods and passing it on to the Highway Safety Committee without any specific direction from us is, I don't think it's a good use of their time without having any knowledge of what we're seeking for them.
Actually, I think they would
Thought we were
understand, and I could relay it, and Kyle could as well, and the chief would, who leads the meetings, well, not always, I guess now, Brian does sometimes, but we would know that you're contemplating changing it to 25 miles an hour, which is the absolute lowest that you can go, and so I think they would know that.
Eileen?
Well, just to be clear that, and I know you're not implying this, but I just want to state it, that the Highway Safety Committee is not a rubber stamp. They take your ideas into consideration, your desires into consideration, and then they, as experts, report back to you. You can ignore their recommendations, but they need to have free reign to be able to voice their opinions collectively as a group.
Okay. Barbara?
Yeah, just
Thank
a comment or two. I think I'm in favor of sending it to Highway because with all of the building going on in town, we already have densely populated neighborhoods, even on some of what you would call the through roads, like Back River Road, Bedford Road, where it's house after house after house after house, lot after lot after lot, versus a long expanse of fields that make it more rural. So I think the time is right to take a look at it and see if, in fact, 30 miles an hour is too fast, because I know on some of the streets I've been in, it is too fast. But, for the amount of houses that are there, the amount of children in the area, just my thought. Thank you.
Any other thoughts on this discussion of speed limits in residential neighborhoods? With that, I think we have general consensus from the council to suggest that the Highway Safety Committee take a look at this and feedback, with the idea that the council was looking to maybe lower it to 25 miles an hour in densely packed residential neighborhoods. Does that sound reasonable? Bill?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I guess, Eileen, do you mind if I ask Kyle a question? Sorry to put you on the spot, Kyle, but in order to, we've talked tonight that a traffic study or engineering would need to be done. I mean, how significant of a task, if we ask you to do that, how significant of a task would it be to do for the, I hate to say the entire town, but for specific neighborhoods? I mean, how laborious would that be for you and everybody?
We have almost 500 roads in the town, so it would be a major task, certainly. Yeah, I'll just leave it at that. I'll save the lecture for highway safety.
Now that we're in a new budget cycle, conceivably, we'd be asking you to do something that may require you coming to us asking for an increase in your department's budget. Is that a fair assessment, or is Eileen going to chime in? Because in my peripheral, she's waving her hand right now.
Sorry, he's opposed to reducing the speed limits, so he won't make that proposal to you willingly.
We are talking about 5 miles an hour.
So why are you philosophically opposed to lowering the
I'm not
speed?
philosophically opposed.
Excuse me?
I'm technically opposed.
Technically, pick your word, Kyle. So
The way the RSA reads, RSA 26560, is that what it is?
Yep, that's correct.
It sets the rules of speeds for municipalities and the state. Even with the development we've had, we wouldn't qualify for the 30-mile-an-hour limit as listed in that RSA in the urban section. I spoke with the administrator of the Bureau of Traffic earlier this week just to make sure I had my stuff right. And he said that the definitions in those two small RSAs that I included, they're not very clear. But what he suggested for the urban density was think downtown Concord, downtown Manchester. When I asked him about our Daniel Webster Highway, he said, no, that really isn't the intent of the urban classification. So the thing with signs and speeds, I promise I'm not meaning to pick on you.
Oh, pick on me, everybody else does.
You stated that you didn't see the speed limit sign.
It's true.
Finley's heard this a dozen times from me, maybe more. Signs don't work. Think as you're driving in another town in another state, how often do you think to yourselves as you're driving along, what's the speed here? You don't know. Most people don't know.
I don't know, but I think about it.
But how fast do you go? You drive to the condition of the road, which is the core of what RSA 26560 says. You drive to the condition of the road and the obstacles in the road. And that's the basis of my lecture. What we found through highway safety, we have this question come up almost every single meeting we have. And Denise and her crew put out the Speed Spy, which it's a great device because you can't see it. It's not like when they put out the signboard that it becomes a
Tells you
game.
what your speed is.
How high can you make the number? People can't see that it's there, so they drive naturally. And I think Finley will back this up. In every instance, the results we get are that the 85th percentile speed, which is a key number in the traffic world, is about 25 to 27 miles an hour. People are not speeding in the neighborhoods. It feels fast. It does. When you've got your kids out there playing, they've got the basketball hoop on the edge of the road, which we don't recommend. It feels fast. But it's a reasonable speed on our roads.
And it's legitimate by state law. And
It is.
unless you can pass an evaluation or engineering study that says it needs to be different, you can't change it because the state law trumps what we want to do.
That's correct. And I suggest to you that engineering studies would not
change.
recommend a 25 mile an hour. We can certainly go through the exercise.
And we may want to do that for given neighborhoods.
Right.
But we'll let the Highway Safety Committee chime in first and give us an opinion.
And I will offer for the Highway Safety Committee, Bill Lambert, he's the administrator of the Bureau of Traffic. He offered to come to a town council meeting. I'll see if Denise will invite him for the Highway Safety meeting so we can have his kind of insight and expertise
His
as
read
well.
on the law, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Does that answer your question?
I asked the question, I got the answer. So thank you, Kyle, I appreciate it.
So are we good with discussion of speed limits in residential neighborhoods? Peter said, by the way, that he is in favor of lowering the speed limit in a neighborhood or subdivision to 25 miles per hour. He would recommend 20, but law does not allow us to do so. 30 miles an hour in streets like Courier, Woodland, Danbury, Belmont, Brookside, or any of these neighborhoods where homes are situated closely is not reasonable or prudent. That's Peter's input. He was, by the way, in favor of everything else that we've done. But has stated that he's not in favor of opening Wildcat Falls until we have completely addressed all the issues, to include the question of making it residents only, and we have some type of enforcement strategy, not only regarding parking, but traffic enforcement in the neighborhood, which these are addressing, and rules enforcement within the Wildcat Falls conservation area from the town and the police department. Okay? 6. So we're done with 5, right? We're transferring that.
Did we vote on that?
Do we need a motion to send
I
this
thought
to
there
the
was a motion.
Highway
thought there
Safety
was.
Committee? Was there a motion?
Nancy moved to move it to the highway safety. There was no second at the time.
Second.
Then Chairman Koenig said, by consensus, it looks like we're moving it forward to the highway safety, and everybody said, yep. So that's where we stand right
Okay.
now.
I didn't want to admit that I didn't know if there was a motion or not. I thought there was, but.
Well, there was a motion, but there was no second at the time?
No, no second at the time.
So it failed by lack of a second?
I just said second to Mr. Chairman.
Well, but we already went through with a consent and everybody agreed.
Okay,
What do you want to do? We can go with a motion.
I'm
all
fine
right, it's
with
good.
consent.
I'm good with consent.
We're good.
Number 6, Capital Reserve Fund withdrawal request, replacement truck for H-35 dump truck. Submitted by Public Works Director Kyle Fox and Operations Manager Lori Barrett, whom he gave the night off. The Highway Division of Public Works is requesting permission to withdraw up to $175,000 from the Highway Equipment Capital Reserve Fund for the purpose of replacing H-35, a six-wheel dump truck.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As you guys know, the folks up in Concord changed the rules of our capital reserve withdrawals. We now, they took away the privilege of the Merrimack voters voting on the equipment purchases as part of the budget. So we now have to come before you guys for each withdrawal. In light of that, our first purchase
Is that a pain or what?
What's that?
You say that as if that's difficult for you to do.
Well, it's not, it's just,
Okay, thank you.
it's frustrating.
Yeah, it's
It's
frustrating.
frustrating for the public not being able to have their say
Right,
at
because
the time of the
I
vote.
think what he's talking about is, you know, how they've changed the capital reserve things all
Yeah,
around, like we've
no, I
talked
understand.
about, and, you know.
Okay.
I apologize for being critical. So I'm here tonight to ask the town council to authorize a withdrawal of up to $175,000 for the replacement of our H-35 six-wheel dump truck. The current truck we have is a 2009 International six-wheel dump, and it's part of our winter maintenance fleet. It is the last six-wheel dump truck in our capital improvement program that's on a 10-year replacement. You'll recall when we spoke about the construction of the new highway facility that we'd be able to get longer terms out of our vehicles. The remaining six-wheel dump trucks either have 11 or the newer ones have 12-year replacement cycles. So this is our last 10-year replacement cycle truck. It certainly needs to be replaced as it is an important piece of equipment for our winter maintenance activities. What we're proposing to replace the vehicle with is a 2021 International HV 507. It's a 36,000 gross vehicle weight truck, six-wheel dump truck with a stainless steel body, new plow and wing plow and all of the mechanics that go with that. It's a unibody spreader, meaning it has a mechanism inside the dump body that allows it to spread right out of that. We don't need a separate spreader inside the truck, which makes them more economical and more usable for certain things. We have a nice blend in our fleet now of trucks that have the spreader bodies and the ones that have the unibodies for the different uses that we need. We're asking for you to approve this tonight because of the long lead time to get trucks made. There's a two-step process for dump trucks. The first step is to purchase the cabin chassis, which is done under a state bid, and that would be through Liberty International in Manchester. The second step is to send it to a second company that actually puts the dump body on and all the hydraulic controls. And given that everybody approves their budgets at the same time and orders their trucks at the same time, it's always a real logjam to get them built. So with the approval tonight, we're confident after speaking to the vendors that we'd be able to have the truck for this winter season. I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Okay, any questions from the council? Bill?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Kyle, what was the bid on the state contract and on back in 2018, what was the total bid for the truck back then?
Geez, I'm sorry, Bill, I didn't bring that.
That's okay. You're asking for 175,000. I'm just trying to understand, was it based off of that 2018 bid?
It was, and it's also based off of bids that, or discussions we've had with the vendors. We're
Okay.
confident we'll be able to meet that number. I should have mentioned, this purchase was in the approved capital improvement program at $180,000.
Okay,
So we're asking for less than what we anticipated, based on discussions with the vendors. We
Okay.
also we'll be trading in our current truck, H35, which will take the price down
that was my
some
next
from there
question.
as well.
Are we gonna get significant trade value on that, or?
Generally, we get about $25,000 for our
That's a good chunk
trade-ins.
of change. It's a good chunk of change, I wouldn't complain
Well,
about that.
compared to 180?
No, I understand, but I'm just saying, it lowers it. Yeah, so, and again, stupid question, it's gonna be, it's all all the trucks are diesel, correct?
That's correct,
Okay,
yes.
perfect. Okay, thank you.
Finley?
Carl, and I should know this answer already, but that 175 is the gross amount for the vehicle, doesn't include the trade-in.
That's correct.
Yep, okay.
Yeah, and the trade-in would lessen that number.
Right.
And we're very protective of the funds in the reserve fund. We always like the trade-in applied so we can keep the balance in the reserve fund.
I appreciate
And
that.
I should mention that we would seek a 7-year engine warranty on this vehicle as well. One of the things we found probably 5 or so years ago, when the engines were changing to meet the new emission standards, is they were blowing turbos quite frequently. This gives us, for $4,500, a 7-year warranty on the engine and turbos and everything that goes with that, so
As opposed to what's the standard?
3-year.
3, okay. Very good.
Any other questions? Barbara?
Yeah, Kyle, does that include transmission as well?
It doesn't. That's the transmission is under the standard warranty.
Okay.
And we have not had problems with the transmissions in these trucks. So that is why we do not buy the extended warranty on the transmissions in the trucks. But we do for our regular police fleet, because we've had problems with the transmissions. But in these bigger trucks, we have not had problems, knock on wood, or having to replace rear ends. Except the fire trucks.
So Kyle, the current truck that you're replacing, it is in bad shape? You have it on a 10-year cycle. Is it not serviceable for another winter, or?
It's serviceable at a cost. What we found, a number of years ago, I had plotted all of our vehicles with the maintenance, and I did a kind of a regression of, where is the line of repair cost versus replacement cost, and the sweet spot was 10 years. And if we kept it another year, certainly we could keep it going. The reliability wouldn't be there. There might be storms where it's down. And of course, that means somebody's road isn't getting plowed as quick as it should. So that's the trade-off. It may make it through the winter, it may not. I can't tell you which way it would. Certainly, we take care of the trucks, and we still use it every day during the summer. It's not a bad truck, but it's the reliability factor during the winter that we need to rely on.
Okay, because I'm thinking if it's still worth 25,000, there's some value there still that.
Absolutely.
The question is whether it's appropriate to replace it in 10 years or to consider replacing it in 10 years and evaluate its current condition.
And we do that. It's actually 11 years because it's a 2009. Because we do tend to, we have our wish list of the CIP, and it, due to budgetary constraints, generally stuff gets pushed beyond anyway. So this is already actually pushed beyond a year.
And the concern would be maintenance and reliability as far as being able to manage the winter load
Correct.
and things of that nature.
Yeah.
Okay. Does anybody else have any other questions? Seeing none, we'll look for a motion to allow the withdrawal of up to 175,000
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
from the capital reserve fund. Highway Equipment Capital Reserve Fund, moved by Bill, seconded by Barbara, for the acquisition of a replacement to the H-35 six-wheel dump truck. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, call a question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed or abstaining? Peter did say he was in favor of this effort in his email.
Thank you, Kyle, appreciate it. Have a good weekend.
Thanks, Kyle. And it's good to hear the other trucks are on a longer cycle because we can maintain them better undercover. Which is
being out of the weather is a huge help.
great.
Excellent.
These prices, we'd like to hold them as long as we can.
Well, and that's something that I'm thinking, as time goes on with the vehicles, now that they're being housed, I'd like that to be taken, analyzed halfway through or at some point to see if we, in fact, can gain another year or two in the end.
Well, and so he's already built in an extra 2 years
Right,
on
which is what the
new ones,
conversation
and
was, yeah.
hopefully we can go further. And that's why I asked him, this one he said is 11 years. So he's already gone a year beyond his expectation. And I think we need to evaluate each of these each time, just to make sure we're not throwing money away. Again, thank you, Kyle, appreciate it. 7, Town Council retreat and goal sessions. We normally have had the election in April, and by May, we have decided on going forward with our council retreat to work with the new council in place to talk about our goals for the year, where we want to go, what we think are critical issues beyond COVID-19, and things both on infrastructure and in policy. And we obviously are late even considering that this year because of all of the strangeness and just things going on. We'd like to go ahead and schedule and plan something. So I'm looking for the council to have input on a council retreat goal session as to what we would talk about and when.
Did Becky call Buckley's?
Yes.
Yes, yes, she did, and I believe the information was provided to the council chair.
So Buckley's is wide open to host us again at the Carriage Room. The week of the August, the second and third week of August are all wide open. She specifically asked for between the 11th and 13th of August and the 18th and 20th of August as potentials, and they would be happy to host us again in that environment. A little bit tight environment maybe if we're considering social distancing, whether we need to be at that point in time or whether we care or concern or whatever. But those are options, and it's always worked out really well for us. Eileen?
Do we know if they have another room? Because I think we still need to be maintaining our social distancing, and that room is tight.
Is the restaurant open?
The restaurant is open. They do have another room as well upstairs. We can ask them about it once we get a date to make sure, well, there haven't been a lot of weddings, so there haven't been a lot of rehearsal dinners and things of that sort. But if we could pick a date between the 11th, 12th, 13th, 18th, 19th, 20th, or 21st, then we can definitely call them and book the room upstairs. June, geez.
Of
I wish.
August.
Of August.
Yeah, we need, the reason we're pushing it out into August is because we need time for the staff to be able to pull data together for us based on what we've done in the past as far as being able to study parks, roads, buildings, all of those things. Finley,
I'm just telling you, the second day is my preference.
the second day is your preference?
18th through 21st, I think, Paul is suggesting.
18th through 20th is what I heard. 21st is Friday. Barbara?
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing because we will probably all be in town that week.
Oh, that would help.
You know what I mean? So-
Yeah.
Because we have a council meeting that week. So rather than,
Might have several council meetings between now and then, but.
absolutely, but there you go.
So does anybody have a Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday / Friday preference, or? I'm gonna say I don't care, but Thursday's probably not a good day if we have a council meeting that day.
Well,
That'd be an awful lot of time with you
I'm
guys.
gonna be on vacation, but I could probably come back for the 21st.
You're gonna be on vacation? I need to retire, you know? Gee. Yeah.
Don't get me started.
So would you like me to proceed with the 21st?
But I could promise to be back for the 21st.
Because the first one, the 12th or 13th, I could work. The 11th, I'm pretty confident I couldn't work. 12th or 13th.
When are you leaving, Nancy?
So, yeah, so
Well,
I'm
Barbara,
gonna-
you're out that the second week of August, is that right? The 11th through 13th?
See, I'm gonna be,
I can be in town, but,
it's easy for me to come back for the Friday,
yeah.
because
For the
I'm gonna be there the
21st.
week before, and I wasn't planning on coming back until like the 19th
Till
or
the meeting
20th.
on the 20th?
But the 21st would be all right.
All right, say again? Okay.
Could we try for the 21st?
are they not available, is that?
I have no idea.
Oh, that's right.
Fridays
I
work-
see what you're saying. It was Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, that's right.
Well, that's what Becky originally asked for, but Paul mentioned the 21st, so he's got something that suggests that's a viable date. I don't think they have any dates that are not available at the moment. They're not booked is the situation.
The room says, and as-
We'll shoot for the 21st of August.
yeah, that gives us a lot, and
Gives us plenty of time to get.
plenty of time, but please, if you could get your ideas of what you want, because.
Absolutely. So
Let's
that-
set a time.
If you can get it to us by
the end of the month or?
the end of the month, July 31st, this way.
Yeah,
that
we
gives
want
us some
to
time.
put this together earlier than that.
Yeah.
So we really want to have it within the next couple of weeks, some idea of what
That's very
topics we think are important.
Right, because we don't want to end up like we usually do with you seeing the book land on your desk when
Right.
you arrive there.
That's right.
Right.
So it's very, so
if we can have
anything,
things by the 23rd, that's great, but by definite the 31st, we're going to have a cutoff that we're
and
not
if it's after the
anticipating.
31st, too bad.
Right.
There has to be a timeline.
And if you want to give your ideas to the chair, Eileen, and we'll make sure that it gets in the book.
Okay, and we can look at last year's and flush out a bunch of those numbers, but if you have special things like Watson Park or Wildcat Falls or something like that, you want to pull out separate or special or something, then let us know. And start thinking about it. That's why I mentioned it at our last meeting.
Yep.
So that we could be thinking about it.
We could send out last year's agenda
Great.
to everybody. I'll write that down, hopefully tomorrow.
Okay.
Perfect.
And what has been accomplished on it as well.
Everything.
No, but I mean, we just need to be specific about not just check marks, but what actually was done.
We already did town council committee assignments by decree. We're going along with next year, so that takes care of number 8. Number 9, the town manager's annual evaluation. I just wanted to bring up and have us formally approve it, but we got together and discussed the town manager's evaluation. I made copies available to people of the summary of what the town council came up with. I haven't had a chance to sit down and discuss it with Eileen, but we made our decision. We looked at the town manager's self-evaluation, and actually, we were a little happier with her evaluation than she herself. So if somebody's got any comments or suggestions or wants to comment on that, otherwise I would look for a motion to approve the town manager's evaluation for 2019-2020.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Motion made by Bill, seconded by Finley, to approve the evaluation the town council's put together, and we apologize for being late. COVID-19 got in the way.
That's my excuse.
That works for
You're
me.
sticking to it.
We're sticking to it. If there's no other comments, we'll call for a vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or abstaining? That passes 6-0 with Peter in favor as well.
You're just saying that he.
I'm just saying that because he wanted me to mention things that he mentioned in his notes. That brings us to minutes. And we have minutes that we tabled from the June 25th meeting for June 11th. to approve tonight?
Mr. Chairman, I would move the Thursday, June 11th, 2020 Town Council meeting minutes.
As presented?
When I looked at this 2 weeks ago, I had a couple of edits, and in fairness, I didn't get a chance to look at this to find my edits. So that's why I made the motion as I did, because I know that there are edits in there that need to be made. I'm sure Council Healy may potentially be bailing me out.
So a motion was made by Bill to accept the minutes, and
Okay.
seconded by Counselor Healy.
Yes.
I did have some changes I wanted to point out.
Perfect.
So the first one I came up with is begins on page 4. And it actually shows up on line 6 at the end, where Deputy Chief Levesque is talking about police officers and use of force reviews. And use of force is not page 4 of 21. Use of force, I think, should be in quotes because it's an item. It's not 3 words in a sentence, as it's presented there. And so there are multiple times at the end of line 6, in line 15, in line 17, and in line 20, where I think use of force should be in quotes because that's the title of the review, or capitalized or underlined, whatever anybody thinks is appropriate, just to set it off that that's something special that he was talking about. Okay? You'll have to hang on with me. I didn't mark this really well. That's what happens when you dog-ear these things. This is a trivial one on page 19 and 21. Line 17, motion carried, ought to be after it says that Counselor Rothaus abstained. Just move it down a line. And that's it. Are there any other additions, changes, corrections to the minutes of June 11th? Seeing none, we'll call for a vote to accept them as amended. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed or abstaining? That passes 6-0-0. Comments from the press? Comments from the public? Comments from the council? Nancy?
I wish I had said this under the discussion of the town manager. I just want to make a comment that I want to thank you. You make us look good, and you make us look competent. And part of that is based upon the amount of your work and your staff's work, Paul and Becky and Chris and Sharon and Christine. But you're the leader, and so that you've led a very competent group, and I just want to thank you for that. You make us look good. Better than we deserve sometimes. And we've had tough stuff, is right.
Any other comments? I couldn't echo. Bill, go ahead.
Just to dovetail off of what Councilor Harrington was saying, people that I talk with in other communities want Eileen Cavanaugh to be in their communities. That's how, not just good, that's how great she is at her job. And I don't mean to be effusive, but I am going to be effusive because, as Councilor Harrington alluded to, she does make us look good. And I think I've said this publicly, and I'll say it again. I think she is one of the top 3 managers in the state, hands down. Well, I moved you up. I moved you up, top 3.
Two of them have already retired.
You moved up 2, 3. So, but no, in all seriousness, Eileen, thank you for what you do. I feel very comfortable that moving forward, with what we've all experienced with C-19 and the challenges that'll be ahead, I know that you and obviously Paul are going to be here to guide us and keep us on the straight so that, we're able to focus on the things that we're trying to accomplish here in the community. So thank you very much. I appreciate it, Eileen. And I also want to thank my colleagues again for re-electing me to sit here. I really deeply appreciate it, so thank you very much. Sorry, Mr. Chairman.
No, I was going to say basically what you said. So I would just, there's a couple of things. I'm going to do my public service. COVID-19 is still with us. Continue to social distance, continue to wear masks to keep yourself and people that you deal with safe. We're trying to stay 5 or 6 feet apart from each other so that we don't have to wear masks because it's difficult to talk and share ideas. And I understand that, and everybody's dealing with that today. But still, when you go to the grocery store, when you go to the ice cream shop, when you go to whatever, if you're going to be around where other people are, protect yourself, protect the people around you, and be protected from those people as well by wearing a mask and washing your hands and doing the things you need to do, because it's very contagious. It's still there. In many states, it's blossoming to the point where they're now concerned again about whether they're going to overrun their medical capabilities to manage it. Fortunately, in New Hampshire, I think we're well under control and we're not seeing that issue, but it only takes a little bit to trip that and go the other direction, and we don't want to do that. So please continue to be cautious. It seems to me when I look around, people are being less cautious now than they were 3 weeks ago. And although we're opening up the state, we're still in a concern condition. And people that are sensitive, people that are immunocompromised, all of those things still have a reason to be concerned. And so just continue to be cautious. And I know it's uncomfortable, I know it's difficult, but it's important for us in our town, in our community, in our state, that we do what we can to keep everybody as healthy as possible. So that's my public service announcement. Eileen, I just wanted to echo the thanks and congratulations that you've gotten. I kind of rushed through the acceptance of the evaluation because I really didn't want to trip on any personnel types of things. So I hope you didn't take any offense to that, but you have done a tremendous job leading us through COVID-19, union contracts, Anheuser-Busch, Saint-Gobain, all of those different things that we've had to deal with over this past year. And I know some of them have been extremely difficult, and some of them, like Wildcat Falls, have been a little bit trying to come up with the right answer. And we may not have the exact right answer now, but I think we have enough ammo in the table that we can come up with a solution in conjunction with the Conservation Commission and the neighbors and the residents of the town. And a lot of that is because of your guidance and your help. And we really do appreciate it. We'd be lost, honestly, without your guidance. And that of Paul McCallie and all of the staff that's been mentioned today. I think we have a tremendous staff here in Merrimack. We try to continue to show that. The police department, the fire department, the public works department, everybody in the town of Merrimack works for the benefit of the town of Merrimack. And one of the things you've tried to do is make sure that the public sees a positive face. And I think they do that, and a lot of it is due to your guidance and encouragement. I know the tax collector's office works really hard to try and keep a positive face. And that's one of the hardest ones, because that's where they're taking the money and stuff like that. So every time we have an opportunity to reach out and thank you and the folks that work for you, you're our only employee from the council, so we appreciate your efforts. And I know you show that appreciation to the people in the town that are employees. So all of the town of Merrimack, we appreciate the work that they do. So thank you very much.
Well said.
Without further ado,
Motion to adjourn.
motion to adjourn made by Bill, seconded by Barbara. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed or abstaining? Thank you very much. We'll see you in 2 weeks.
Pete was here, he'd not want to end it.
Merrimack TV is committed to our community. From gavel-to-gavel coverage of town and school board meetings, to updates on town services and projects, we aim to keep you connected.
Good morning, I'm Kyle Fox, Public Works Director for the town of Merrimack.
Hi, I'm Diane Trippett. I'm the town clerk tax collector for the town of Merrimack.
I'm Captain Matt Tarleton with the Merrimack, New Hampshire Police Department.
And keep the public informed of every motion.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
And many moments so you can be confident that we're here for you. Thanks for watching. Stay connected. Follow Merrimack TV on Facebook.